You believe in Jesus?
Yes, I do.
Well, you're going to meet him.
You see what fun this is? It's going to get really exciting. I know what to do now. They've made it clear.
You warriors are good. Real good. The best.
This is the end of your rotten life, you motherfucking dope pusher.
We'd make one hell of a team, Snake.
The name's Pliskin.
Hey everybody, welcome to the first episode of 42nd Street Forever, the official podcast of Grindhouse Cinema Database. I'm Pete Roberts, and I'm here with the co-creator of the GCDb, Sebastian Hasselbeck. How you doing, Seb?
Hey, good morning, Pete. How are you?
Good, doing good. So we're going to start the show out with talking a little bit about the site and, how we got started and, where the idea came from. So, we started back in 2007, right? I think it's been a long time, many years.
Yeah, it's been way over 10 years. And
yeah.
I think we started it shortly after the Spaghetti Western database.
When did you start that? 2004 or something?
That was 2004. Yeah. And I think we at least from a technical perspective, we modeled it a little bit after that.
Right. Because we, it's a sort of like it's a wiki, so a Wikipedia type setup. So it has like the different
of exploitation,
right? Or the encyclopedia. We called it the Encyclopedia of Exploitation Cinema. So we have all the different categories, and that's how we set it up. So that was kind of cool. It was different than a regular blog because we had all that stuff that built into it, which was really cool. All the years and all the different subgenres, and that was really a cool idea. I thought.
Yeah, I think that even one of the first things we had was some articles and lists on some of the genres we liked.
Right, like blaxploitation and polizio tesci. I still can't say that. Polizio. I just say like Eurocrime, just because it's easier.
Or call them polizios. I think the tesci or whatever is just an Italian like plural or something. Yeah.
I think it means like esque, like something esque, like you know what I mean.
That could
like
be
Tarantino-esque, like that type of thing. But so I mean, we we did pattern it after the SWDB, which is just spaghetti westerns, and I thought it would be cool to just encompass all the different genres and subgenres of exploitation cinema, and then keep it in between like the so there's a cutoff point, so we didn't go past like 1989 or something like that since. Because that's when the grindhouses started shutting down. So we kept it like, just the real authentic grindhouse cinema days, you know what I mean? Which was really cool.
And I think that's a really important fact for especially the newer readers and listeners that they might be wondering why you won't find many late 80s or early 90s slashers or whatever, because that was straight to video. That was after the grindhouses.
Right. So we kind of had that little idea in our mind, and so we try to keep it like the old school and let the other sites do the the newer nouveau grindhouse movies, like all that stuff. So. But it's been really fun working on the site. I mean, we kind of, this was before Twitter when we started. So we were just doing like the regular social media stuff from, before that even took place. So, but I mean, now it's really opened up because we have Twitter and Facebook and, all these other channels to go through and promote our site.
Podcast.
It's really good. Now we have the podcast too. So yeah, I mean, we've been kind of like holding off on the podcast, but now we kind of like want to get into it a bit more and, it's just another format to, talk about the movies and, kind of have some guests on, and it's pretty fun. I've liked it so far. We have our
it can add really nicely to some of the genre specials and articles we have on the site.
Right. We can point back to them and, reference different things. So what was the next thing on our list we were going to talk about? We have to
we look at the calendar and it is Shocktober.
Yeah, it's horror month. So we're gonna the first show we're gonna start out with just horror, basically horror stuff, horror films we're gonna be talking about. Our top 10 horror films, counting down from 10 to 1. So
How do we pick those? Was it a voting?
We did like a poll on Twitter. I think we did half of it are like off the site, people that work on the site, and then the other half was like we did like a straw poll on Twitter. So we have like kind of like a half 50-50. So we got some of our picks and then some of the public picks, which was cool. That was a good way to do it.
It's a pretty great list.
Yeah, it is a great list. And these movies are very popular. So it's not like, it's not, there's a couple, more obscure titles, but I mean, most of them are really well known by people. So you want to just start off.
If you want to know just 10, know these 10.
Yeah. I mean, these are, we had the other 10, but I mean, I figured 20 would be too much to do for our first show. It's just a lot,
And we can go a little bit more into the mixes in the next episode. So.
Yeah. We have other stuff we want to do too. So do you want to just start off with number 10 now?
I can do number 10. So number 10 on the GWDB's top 20 horror classics list is the most infamous cannibal movie, Cannibal Holocaust.
New York City is only a day away from the green inferno of the Amazon jungle. 4 Americans plunge into the savagery of the Amazon jungle to film a documentary. They never come back. Are they still alive? If so, where are they? Shocking. Actually filmed in the Amazon jungle.
Starts this coming Friday at the Town Theater. Due to shocking scenes of violence, no one under 17 will be admitted.
The first time I watched that was just a few years ago, actually.
Yeah, that's a rough movie. And that's like, if you're talking about like out of this list, it's probably the roughest film in the bunch because it's just really like nasty stuff. But the way I feel about Cannibal Holocaust is it's a really well-made movie, and it's like, the storyline, it's set up, it's really influenced out of the Blair Witch Project. If you've seen that, I don't know if you saw that, but that if you watch this Cannibal Holocaust, and then you watch, you'll say, oh yeah, that's Cannibal Holocaust. Just, they copied it perfectly. But I mean, and I love both movies actually, but Cannibal Holocaust is one of those movies you can't watch it like very often. You're not going to be watching it every month or anything. It's just really harsh stuff, but it's really well made. That's the thing about it. It's just really impactful, and it just delivers the goods. Big time.
Almost like the controversy doesn't really do the movie justice, because if you took some of the splatter moments out, it would be a really high quality, artsy kind of almost like one of those Mondo movies, or kids getting lost in the jungle movie.
Yeah, it is like that. It's very well made, and it's like, it's very, the production design is awesome. Like it's like but when you throw all that, the animal killing in and stuff like that, that's really what's most disturbing. And then there's like all this castration stuff, and it just really gets really nasty. But as far as like, the filmmaking itself, I think it's one of the best. It's probably, I think, my favorite Ruggero Deodato film. I think it's just awesome. I think
and the soundtrack is also really memorable.
The soundtrack. I love the soundtrack. Yeah. By Riz.
I would go as far and say that maybe in some circles the soundtrack might be more famous than the movie.
Yeah, the soundtrack is awesome. I love that like electronic pulsing stuff. It's just awesome. And also and also the title theme, it goes against what the movie's about. It's such like a beautiful, like if you listen to it, it's like a beautiful melody, and then like you watch the movie and it's like, what the hell? It's like total opposite tone wise against the movie. It's crazy, but I love it though.
You might even find that one on, let's say, a 70s lounge music classic.
Yeah, it's just like this beautiful.
People would watch it in like a a living room setting and not knowing what kind of movie.
Yeah, you wouldn't know what it was if you heard that theme song. You're like, wow, this is really beautiful. I feel like I'm like in the paradise right now. And then you like watch the movie and it's like, what the hell? But I love like that pulsing weird electronic stuff that he used in the thing. It was like pew pew. It's like weird crazy stuff. It's just awesome.
And was this the one that got that triggered a bunch of court cases, and they had to prove that they didn't really kill these people?
Yeah, it was like banned in 30 countries, and there was a whole controversy, and I'm sure it was banned. It was banned from a lot of places, but I mean, of course, on 42nd Street, the Deuce, I'm sure they played it like right on the, and just like Cannibal Fear Rocks, that was a big. If you look on the internet, you can see like the big marquee for the Liberty Theater.
Yeah, but Fear Rocks is not such an artsy, high quality knockoff. It's more that goes more in the sleazy direction.
Are you saying the Cannibal Fear Rocks one?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like sort of like I couldn't watch it like the other horror movies, which aren't as terrible.
I would say that if someone's a little bit squeamish, then it's almost like you will know which moments that are coming up might be a little crazy, and you could just.
You'll definitely know when the sea turtles. When you start seeing
our listeners,
when you start seeing like sea turtles being ripped apart, you'll be like, okay, I'm gonna like take a break now and go and like throw up in the bed. I mean, it's pretty terrible. It's nasty stuff. But
the good thing is that if you look away, then this is not gonna.
It's not.
It's not gonna.
It's not gonna impact you as much if you look away.
Or it's not necessary for the story. Also, it's you're not gonna miss something from the story.
I always say don't be eating like a bowl of spaghetti when you're watching Cannibal Holocaust. So just like throw it.
or a chicken or something.
Yeah, or like a bowl of chili. Don't like be doing that while you're watching this movie because it's too much. Okay.
Yeah, but it is a good one. So maybe to wrap up, one last thought on Cannibal Holocaust is I think that while there have been other cannibal movies that try to be, let's say, as good in terms of quality, I don't think there was ever one that kind of accomplished that. So, and the whole genre, I think, just took a dive into the sleaze.
There's Cannibal Holocaust, and then like everything else. It's just it's the apex of like that genre for me. I think it's just really well made. It's really like disturbing, really gory, really like just all the animal killing stuff. It's just very stomach churning type stuff, but it's like when you watch it, you're like, yeah, that's an awesome. It's really well made though. So it's like you have this weird, feeling of this conflicted feeling about it. But anyways.
Yeah, I actually recently watched the Green Inferno, which is I think.
Oh yeah, is that Eli Roth?
Yeah,
I haven't seen that yet.
It's like an homage, I want to say, but.
I haven't seen that.
I do not want to give it a thumbs up. I don't think it was. It was great in any way.
It wasn't like it was just sort of like another. I haven't seen that one yet, but
it wasn't even shocking.
Yeah,
it's just
it didn't have much
of a useless endeavor.
Right. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean that's Cannibal Holocaust. It's like just the best. I mean, for me, as far as that genre, and I'm not like really into cannibal movies. Really, that's not like my favorite genre, of course. So, but I mean, if I have to pick one, that would be my number one favorite. So. Okay,
it's almost like if you were to pick a zombie movie and took the zombies out, is it still a great movie? And if the answer is yes, then it's a great zombie movie.
That's a good point too. I mean, if it's just really well made and you could watch it without the zombies in it, I guess. I don't know. That's a good point, but that's the whole thing. It's like, those movies are kind of like, we'll get into that later on. But anyways, should we go on to number 9?
Yep.
Okay, number 9 is Friday the 13th. From 1980, and that's directed by Sean Cunningham.
Friday the 13th is a story of madness carried beyond its limit. It is a film that is not recommended for the very young or for people who are prone to nightmares. Friday the 13th, you may only see it once, but that will be enough. Friday the 13th, rated R, under 17.
Now that is one of the most well-known franchises, at this point. That's like, up with Halloween and, Nightmare on Elm Street. But Jason isn't in this one. The very first one is his mother is the killer in the first one. That's how it starts.
Yeah, I think this is one of the movies that I keep mixing up with Nightmare on Elm Street for some reason. I don't know, because it's I put it in the same drawer.
Yeah, I love this. I'm actually like more when it comes to the slasher movie series, I'm a Friday the 13th person over the Halloween. I love the first Halloween, but the rest of the series I'm not the biggest fan of. But I love Friday the 13th. I've watched all of these like so many times. Well, up to part 8. After part 8, I kind of tuned out after that, but the first 8, I love those.
At what point did they cross over the franchises?
I think it was after Jason X, Jason 10. I think it was Freddy, then they did Freddy versus Jason, and I think I saw that a few years ago, but it's been a while. But as far as like the originals go, I love like the original Friday the 13th. Those are my favorite.
And I had to laugh because when they did that crossover, I was like, that doesn't help me because I keep mixing the two up.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, I watched all those movies when I was growing up. I watched all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all the Friday the 13th, all the, you know, the Halloweens. Although I didn't really. People love Halloween 3, and I never really I always felt since Michael Myers wasn't in that one, I just was like against it. But I'll have to rewatch that again. I just never got into that. Now everybody loves Halloween 3 for whatever reason. I just never really saw it and got into it. But that's another franchise, so we'll have to talk about that later. But yeah, Friday the 13th. It's just set at Camp Crystal Lake, and you know it's you know, the classic slasher setup. Kids are being killed off and they're wondering who's doing it. And, you know, it's really entertaining though, too. There's the whole, you know, point of view shots and all the, you know, the way it's shot. And
it's almost like today, when we look back, we keep forgetting that by the time or at the time that Friday the 13th came out, that genre wasn't really as overdone as it is now, and it was still really fresh, and that's why it was so impactful.
Yeah, it was.
Now it's like there's like a million gazillion slasher movies, and they're all kind of modeled after that one. It wasn't the first ever slasher movie, but as also you said, it's really one of the first that did it in an entertaining way without being a goofball comedy.
Right. Yeah. And also those are sort of connected to giallos. You know that the slasher films kind of came out of the giallos because they're sort of the same type of movie, really. You know what I mean? If you watch the American slashers and then you go back and watch the giallos, it's sort of the same setup. They're just kind of more streamlined in the American versions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost. I mean, there's even a few giallos that, you know, once they take place in the U.S. or like in New York or whatever, and some of them were even co-productions. You could see the two influences kind of merging, and in the American slasher, where they're not as artsy, like as, you know, that's giallo sometimes is like overdone.
That's what I think the difference is. There's a big difference in that. And also, I don't think the slashers did, you know, like how giallos, they'll have like the weird like dream sequences and stuff, like the weird like psychedelic. They left that stuff out in the slashers. They just went straight for like the, you know, the killer like stalking the person, like the point of view shots and stuff. They like kept that, but they like left out. Yeah,
I always wondered why that is, and I think that one explanation probably is that in the Italian cinema, they still try to somehow get around the censors by depicting the killer as kind of more pathologically sick. Yeah, and that was usually done through like childhood trauma or dreams or whatever, or some sexual depravity. Whereas the American slasher, that was just mainly focusing on what happens and not so much why it happens.
Well, it's like the American slashers were much more like exploitative about it. I think the Italian films were very like stylized and very like they were almost kind of elegant in a way. You know what I mean? Like that type of thing. They had that like European flair to them. That's what I really liked about them.
And they were more Hitchcockian, as in you don't really see too much.
Like you know, if you watch Bird with the Crystal Plumage, that's like more like, you know, it's kind of more Hitchcock than like, you know, the slashers weren't so much like, they were just going for like the kill stuff, the kills and the gore and stuff. You know what I mean? That's what I think. I mean, I love both. I just love for what they are. I love both genres, you know.
But interestingly is that with the bigger franchises, once they come out with like origin stories, you see that there's like a need to explain where it comes from.
Right.
Interestingly. So I guess in a way the two are really intertwined, and I would really wish that more like slasher fans would look more strongly into giallo to understand where the influences came from.
Yeah, I love that genre because I found that, like, you know, when I first discovered giallos, I was like, wow, these are like, I just love the whole European settings and the elegance and like it was just more like, and I loved like the time period. It was sort of like the late 60s, early 70s. And you know what I mean? You had that, and then the music and stuff. It was just more like there was more to it. And the women were really beautiful, and I don't know. I just loved that whole atmosphere of the Giallo. I just love those.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
it's almost like they're to horror movies what the spaghetti western is to western movies.
I guess they were. I call them spaghetti slashers. That's my little, even though if it's not completely correct, but I mean I just like to call them that. But it's more than that. It's that's like a little like the spaghetti westerns. We call them spaghetti westerns, but there's more to it than just just calling them that.
Yeah, it started out as a derogatory term, but I would say today it's almost like a badge of honor. Like
it's also
your movie has something that reminds a cineast of an Italian influence, then it's like kudos, you did well.
It's the same thing with blaxploitation. When someone says black, that was a derogatory term when it first, to make it sound like it's exploiting black stereotypes. But I don't even care. I'm like, I love those movies. I don't care what if there's any, it doesn't matter to me. That's not why I love them. The term is just a way to like kind of put them all in a box, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's not like, you know what I mean? But I don't care about that. So that's not what I'm into. That's not why I love those movies. But so Friday the 13th is number 9. You're okay. You're good.
And so for number 8,
Black Christmas.
Remember those idyllic scenes out of your childhood? Crisp winter nights, sleigh bells, crackling Yule logs? Remember those? Remember them well. After Black Christmas, they'll never be the same again.
We go to a movie that I think for the first time I actually saw at the New Beverly.
Did you see the original there? Did you see the original at the New Beverly?
Yeah, I saw. I think that must have been the original.
The one with Olivia Hussey? That's
exactly, the Bob Clark movie.
Yeah, Bob Clark. Yeah, I love this.
I hadn't seen that before, and I think that's a really nice anecdote because the New Beverly, of course, they do the Christmas double features.
Oh yeah,
and this was the front end of the double bill.
What was the other
one?
Seeing
this, the other one I think was
Silent
Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, I love that one.
Part two.
That was a creepy movie too.
That's a whole different experience.
Yeah,
but Black Christmas, I think it is such an effectual movie, and seeing this in a packed theater.
Yeah, that is a very
that was a blast.
It was, and you know what? Now this connects to what we were talking about before, because Black Christmas. If you watch Black Christmas, that came out in 1974, and if you watch Halloween after that, which came out 4 years later, okay, you'll say, okay, Black Christmas was like before Halloween. That one did exactly the same thing before Halloween came out. And that's why I loved it. I was like, wow, this is even like earlier than it kind of did the whole slasher point of view thing before Halloween was around. I think Halloween was sort of stole from this movie.
And even more, since you mentioned it, Black Christmas is highly up there with the Giallo similarities.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying.
Really, this kind of creepy breathing.
Yeah, right. It's directly from, if you watch a Giallo, then you skip to 1974. You're just saying, okay, Bob Clark just took the Giallo, the Giallo style or setting, and then just put it in Canada or wherever it's set, like in Toronto or something. I think it's like outside of.
Yeah, it's kind of a sorority house setting, but other than that, it might just as well have taken place in Rome or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it doesn't. Yeah, it's exactly. It's you're hitting it exactly right. But I mean I just loved it, and I love like the characters in there. Margot Kidder and Olivia Hussey and John Saxon is in it, and Keir Dullea, who we know from 2001. That was a weird, to see him in this movie. I haven't really seen him in many movies besides those two, I don't think.
And there's at least 2 remakes of this.
Black Christmas?
Yeah.
When would I didn't see the remakes of this one. I didn't see those.
No, I haven't either, but the last one is only like 2 years old, I think.
Okay. So they did it twice? Okay, I didn't even know.
Yeah, at least
I knew about one of them.
At least 2, maybe more.
Yeah, but so
they're all not as great from what I've read.
Yeah, I doubt they're as good as the original. So you liked this one when you saw it at the movie theater?
Oh, I thought it was great, and for the same reason you mentioned that it's not an overdone slasher, but it has its funny moments, but it's a really creepy, and it's really artistic. Like Clark is not known as a super visual or super artsy director, but here I think he had a real knack at
setting it, the visuals is what I did.
Setting the visuals and also
the point of view,
the atmosphere through the point of view, and as you said, this is almost like a giallo, exactly.
And you know what scene really what I found really disturbing was the dirty phone calls that they got. Remember that? And it's like, oh my God, that was creepy as hell. Those phone calls, those obscene phone calls. It was just like, what the hell? You have to watch it. People have to watch it. And you'll be like, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
But trivia question: where have we seen those phone calls before, or where have we heard those before?
Where have we heard the phone calls?
Yeah, or that stylistic device. I want to say.
Well, like it's been done before. It's been done like after that, I think too. Like it's been done. It's been used as like someone's in Scream. You're talking about, right? Scream. Yeah, who's in that?
What I mean is as a giallo reference, and that's the New York Ripper, of course.
Oh yeah. The quacking.
The
quacky. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was after that though. But you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the influences went both ways. I think the giallo directors also looked at what's successful over there and took some cues.
Yep. But they definitely, all those two genres definitely went back and forth. The slashers and the giallos. Like if you watch have you seen Dressed to Kill, the Brian De Palma film? That's like a total giallo basically.
Yeah.
Watch it. Yeah.
The back and forth, and I think that's interesting that you mentioned it, because the back and forth, that is of course not limited to the horror genre. If you look at the spaghetti western, of course, started out mimicking the U.S. western, but then starting in the 70s, the U.S. western
started mimicking
took the stylistic devices from the
really
spaghetti western.
Yeah, I love that. I love how they take like ideas from each other. Like they'll then the American directors started seeing like the spaghetti westerns, and they liked those a lot, and they started taking ideas from those, which is really, that's how art should be. You should always be like inspired by what you're watching, and taking ideas from different things.
Yeah, and of course the audience's tastes they change with what they have access to over time, obviously. Yep. And 42nd Street and other big city hotspots where you could watch foreign movies and so on. The taste of the audience, of course, was a lot different from out in the country, where you had only maybe some drive-in theaters that would show a lot of stuff, but not nearly as much stuff as you could see on 42nd Street.
Yeah, because then you could go to the Grindhouse, then you can go to an art house and see like some art movies. So I'm sure a lot of directors were going to like the Grindhouse for a while, then they'd go down to the art house and see some like some Fellini movie or something like that, and they were kind of like mixing things together, and that's how you do the art. That's how you make it.
42nd Street, where you can go from Fellini to Fellatio.
Fellini to Fellatio. That's a good one. That's a new one. I never heard that one. Okay, so should we move on from Black Christmas?
Yeah, and you did the next one.
Did we even say what Black Christmas? We didn't even say what Black Christmas was about, though. Well, we kind of did, I guess. We kind of talked.
We kind of assumed that everybody knew it.
It's sort of like it's basically like an early slasher film set at like a sorority house in Canada. I think it's Toronto or some place in Canada, but some little outside the city at some college. But and then the killer creeps in and starts like taking up the little co-eds and stuff. And it's really well done, though. I love that movie. It's excellent. Like if you love Halloween, you got to go back and watch Black Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we'll go on to number 7 now.
Yep.
And that is Reanimator, directed by Stuart Gordon in 1985. And this one is based on a story by H.P. Lovecraft.
15 cc's of reagent.
This is not an advertisement for a new movie. This is a warning. If you are squeamish, if you have nightmares, if you have a weak heart, before you experience Reanimator, think very carefully. H.P. Lovecraft's classic tale of horror, Reanimator. Remember, you've been warned.
He's dead? Not anymore.
And it's really an awesome movie. I love it. It's very, very funny, too. I love this one.
Yeah, I've not seen that one. That's the only one on the list I haven't seen.
Okay. Well, this one is like it's about a crazy scientist named Dr. Herbert West, who develops a serum that can reanimate flesh, and that's basically all you need to know about the movie. Then after that, it's all about he's doing tests and stuff. And there's one of my favorite sequences in the movie is he injects a cat with the serum. And they do this awesome thing where it's set in the basement and there's only one light, and the light is swinging around, and the dead cat comes back to life, and they're trying to get the cat, and all you hear is the cat screeching, and and the light is going back and forth, and the cat is black, by the way, so there's no you can't see where the cat is because it's just blackness and the light swinging, and it's just an awesome sequence. It's my favorite sequence in the movie, so you'd have to watch that to know what I'm talking about. But I just love that film. It's very, very funny, very dark comedy, and it's just lots of crazy gore gags, and people would love it. Directed by Stuart Gordon, by the way, if I didn't mention that.
And are you big on Lovecraft in general?
I can't say I'm a huge Lovecraft guy, but I've seen a few movie versions of those stories, and fine. I like Edgar Allan Poe. I like different versions of those stories too. But I'm not like a gothic geek or anything. I just love that it's set in the 80s, so it's sort of it's not really too gothic. It's just kind of zany, crazy, gory, and very funny, and it's just really a lot of fun. I love it. Sort of Frankensteinish,
Yeah, and only a couple of weeks ago, I rewatched The Thing, and The Thing also has some Lovecraftian in it.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of movies that have aspects of that without being full on Lovecraft.
Yeah, I don't really know enough. I don't know enough about Lovecraft. What was his thing? Was it a lot of stuff to do with scientific experiments and stuff? I don't know.
Yeah, his stuff is super creepy and a little bit spaced and
science based. I don't know what the hell.
More supernatural, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm also not very big on his stuff, so I don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I never I didn't read a lot of the stuff, but I mean, I love the adaptation of it for sure, because it's just such a fun movie. I just loved it. But
needs to go on my list.
Yeah, it's very good, and the theme song, the theme to it is very reminiscent of Psycho. When you listen to the theme song of Reanimated, you'd be like, okay, that's just basically Psycho theme, but they maybe a different little slightly alternated. You'll be able to hear it completely when you watch that. Okay, you want to move on to the number 6 pick?
All right. So number 6 is The Beyond.
The 7 dreaded gateways to hell are concealed in 7 cursed places, and from the day the gates of hell are open, the dead will walk the earth.
Bloodthirsty zombies, face-ripping tarantulas, eyeball-piercing spikes, and endless streams of flesh-dissolving acid. Only a few of the delights to be found in The Beyond, Lucio Fulci's masterpiece of gothic Italian horror. Little did Lisa Merrill know that the spooky old New Orleans hotel she just inherited was built on one of those 7 dreaded gateways to hell. A guarantee of macabre mayhem and terror. Will she defeat the forces of evil? Will she outrun the walking dead? Or will she be sucked into the unknown, the inferno? The Beyond. Don't miss a special re-release of The Beyond, only at midnight at a theater near you. A Rolling Thunder, Grindhouse, and Cowboy booking film. Don't miss The Beyond, playing exclusively at the Lemley Sunset 5 Theater Fridays and Saturdays at midnight.
And that's one of my most favorite movies. That's the first Lucio Fulci movie I ever saw, and I was like, okay, I'm a fan of this guy. I love this. I love his stuff. I love The Beyond.
Yeah, and that was already in the 80s, so it came out in 81, I think, but it 81, must have been shot in the late 70s probably, and it's kind of part of his Gates of Hell, or whatever you want to call it, trilogy with City of the Living Dead, House by the Cemetery. And it's not a giallo, and it's not a classic horror. It's more like a gothic supernatural.
Yeah, it's very crazy.
Natural thing that spans a couple decades, and I think it goes. I think it starts. I think it starts. I think it starts in 1927. I think the opening of it, in that flashback scene. Yeah. And then jumps to the 80s, and Catriona McCall is the leading lady in this, and
she owns the hotel.
One of the reasons why it's gathered such a cult following is that once that this is just my interpretation, but once it became accessible again, let's say on DVD and whatever, and it could be experienced in widescreen and in Fulci's artistic vision, it became clear to a lot of geeks and cineasts out there that this is a highly artistic,
director,
mind-blowing director
very
that is
much.
more than just cheap thrills and slashing.
That's what I thought too, because that's where I first saw it. I think it wasn't it on Quentin's label, Rolling Thunder Pictures, and then Grindhouse. I think it was like a co-release.
And they keep releasing it in theaters every now and then.
Yeah, and it was also released as 7 Doors of Death, I think, back in the Grindhouse days. So, but I mean, it's just one of those movies. There's another movie the next movie on the list. I'm not going to say what it is, but as far as like stylization goes, like in the cinema and the gore and everything, this is the one I like out of the two, because there's a lot of times these two are kind of like, kind of compared back to back, because they're sort of like, Italian, Italian horror guys that both made them. So, but I mean, out of the two, this is my favorite one. I just think it works really well as the story, and it's like, the gore effects are crazy good, and
I think
the
atmosphere the most artistic out of his trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for some reason I just love this one the most. Maybe it's because it's the first one I saw out of his movies or what, but I just
definitely leaves an impression.
Yeah, I love and it's set in New Orleans, like and I just love that atmosphere. It has like a weird. I just loved in the music by Fabio Frizzi. I love all that stuff. It's just awesome.
The music is really good too.
That weird piano, like ding, ding, and then that weird. It also doesn't have it has like that weird, like almost like it's not heavy metal, but it's like it's just really like blaring, like this crazy sound. I don't know what it is, but it's just the weirdness of the whole atmosphere and how it's very much like a pure cinema movie. There's not a lot of like there is story, but it's more like based. It's just like different sequences that like you're watching, and it's not like they're all kind of like disparate and stuff. It's just really cool.
And it's almost like it's very dreamy, so it's almost like a nightmare in itself.
That's another aspect.
And it has like really great special effects.
Definitely.
So what I'm not going to forget is like the white contact lenses or whatever she wears.
Right. Like Emily's, that very haunting, like that scene where Catriona MacColl is driving down that long stretch of like, it's like a bridge in New Orleans, I think. And you see her standing in the middle of the bridge with the dog, and she has like those weird eyes, those white eyes. It's like really weird stuff. I just love the whole look of it and the whole atmosphere, and it's just great. I love it.
I found an interesting quote by Fulci. I'm not sure if that's true or whatever. I haven't checked the source, but he says, "People who blame The Beyond for its lack of story have not understood that it's a film of images, which must be received without any reflection." Because of course, it's like a super Italian thing to say. It's like, if you don't understand it, it's because you don't understand it.
Right. He doesn't like explaining. He says he just kind of gives you like a quote like that. But it's sort of like that's connects to the next movie on the list, which is like they're both like very, very stylized, and there's story, but it's not like about the story. It's more about like the visuals and the effects and stuff like that. I think, you know what I mean? The atmosphere, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And so number 5 is
Suspiria, directed by Dario Argento.
You can run from Suspiria. You can hide from Suspiria. Who's there? Who's there? But you cannot escape Suspiria. Once you've seen Suspiria, you will never again feel safe in the dark. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
And I'm not really, I have to say, like, first of all, I'm not a huge, I mean, I respect the movie, and I respect people, I respect people's ideas of why they love it. But for me, it's not really one of my favorite films. I just don't think I've watched it several times, and I just find it sort of boring. Like other than like the visuals, the cinematography and stuff, I just don't think it's that interesting as a movie.
Okay. It's been a while since I last seen it, but I had the chance to watch a restoration on a bigger screen, and of course it left quite an impression. The visuals, as you said, are maybe up there with some of the best visuals in the horror genre as a whole, or maybe in the Italian cinema of that decade, I want to say. And the soundtrack is, of course,
By Goblin, yeah.
Goblin is
Good old
probably up
Goblin.
there with their
Yeah.
best work for a movie.
Yeah,
like, they
I
do
liked
a lot of great stuff, but this one is also it's very rhythmic and it sticks with you.
It's very. I think I like I like the soundtrack, and I love the visuals of the movie, but as a whole, it just doesn't do much for me. Like, you know what I mean? It just overall, I'm not like, you know what I mean? I just don't care for it that much.
Yeah, I'm not big on stories about witches and stuff.
Yeah,
but if I had to pick a witch movie, it would be this one.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I think out of like Dario Argento's stuff, I love like Bird with the Crystal. I love his early Giallos, and then I love like Tenebrae, that one that he made in 1982. I think
Tenebrae is pretty good.
Really like that one a lot. It just works for me better.
How about opera? Do you like opera?
Opera, yeah, that was pretty good. That's the one with the girl that gets the razor things on her eyes or something. I don't know something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
yeah, that was
some of it is filmed from the perspective of a raven or so.
Yeah, I also like Deep Red a lot. That's another one I liked a lot.
Yeah, Deep Red is pretty good.
I think I like his Giallo stuff more than the the later movies actually. But I don't know. It's just one of those.
Some of his later stuff is hit and miss, of course.
Yeah,
I think he. I mean, what makes his movies great is closely tied to the style of filmmaking and the technology they had at their disposal in the 70s.
Right.
And once he got into like the 80s, 90s, a lot of his stuff, you could still see his craftsmanship, no doubt, and so on. But there was something missing that I think came from how movies looked and felt like in the 70s that just couldn't be replicated anymore.
I think
at
so
a later
too.
point.
I think so too. It's like watching like a spaghetti western versus watching like a newer movie. Like there's something in the DNA of the film or something. I don't know what the hell it is.
And it's what you said earlier, that feeling you get watching a movie from that decade, and all these stylistic devices and the music and the set decoration and the colors and some of the things you see, like Italian movies, there's always a bottle of J&B or whatever.
J&B.
Have you noticed it's always in there?
The J&B is always in the crime movies. Whenever they're drinking, it's always J&B. And I don't know is it always in the Giallo too? I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not sure if that's like the best advertising deal they ever did.
It's funny as hell because it's always that drink. It's always that brand, J&B. It's like the brand of Polizios.
Yeah.
In Giallos. Yeah.
Brought to you by J&B.
I know. They should just have a J&B,
But also, this was before the internet, and in some respects, even almost before, at least widespread television. And you could imagine that if you drove through like Rome of the 70s, you'd probably see J&B commercials using imagery from the latest whatever horror movie.
I don't even know any other brands of liquor that they had in those, like Cinzano or something like that. Wasn't it the other one that they had, Cinzano or something? I don't know.
Yeah, but it's interesting. It's almost like in today's popular culture, you would associate James Bond with the vodka martini, even though a vodka martini is a drink and not a brand. But
it's funny.
Or Aston Martin. Let's take Aston Martin. You're like, oh yeah, he drives an Aston Martin.
I know, that's funny. That's good stuff.
So when we prepped this call, you said that you hadn't seen the remake by what's his name?
Yeah, was it Luca Guadalucci or something? I don't know.
Guadagnino, I think. Yeah. So I have to say, I saw
Sorry,
it.
Luca.
I saw it and I liked it.
You
did?
But
the thing that whoever's on the fence about seeing it or not seeing it, I think the one thing needs to be said that it's not a remake as much as it is another effort at telling that kind of story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things in there that are so similar to Argento's vision.
Yeah.
And he really tries to both do justice to the look and feel of that era and of Argento's vision, and also transfer to today's kind of filmmaking, even though the movie takes place still I think it takes place in the early 70s or something. Yeah. And I have to say, once you take that aspect out of the equation of comparing it the one to the other.
Yeah.
If you just look at it for what it is, I think it's an excellent movie. It's extremely creepy.
Yeah,
it's quite well made technically, and the look is really nice. I'm not too big on the ending. Like, it gets really witchy in the end to get back to the witches.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't know.
But then again, at the moment, that time I saw it when it came out in theaters, at that point I hadn't seen the original Suspiria in a long while, and I haven't seen it since, I have to say. So I'm not even sure how witchy the end of the original Suspiria is.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to check it out, but I just never, like, 'cause since I wasn't a huge fan of the original. I did watch I've watched the original several times, and I just, every time I get done with it, I'm like, I just, like, I wanted to love it, like, type thing. Like, so I'd rewatch it and be like, maybe I'll like it more this time, and I just never connected with me for some reason. But
I could recommend watching the new one with just an open mind, but use like a surround sound, big screen setting, and just enjoy it for the artistic vision that it is. And I think it's a fair effort. So
didn't Tilda Swinton play a guy in that too, or something like that? She played like a girl and a guy or something.
Well, I think she definitely plays a witch, but I don't want to give too much away.
I thought she played a guy in there too, or something. I don't know. It just looked funny to me. I don't know.
She might be playing all kinds of people. She's like a chameleon,
a witch or something. Yeah, a chameleon. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to burn all them witches.
Burn them witches. I know. Okay, so we on to number 4 now.
Yeah, and number 4 is, again, I mean, most of this list is really famous movies.
Yeah, they're all
number 4
popular.
might be up there with one of the most notorious and famous and successful horror movies, and that's the original Evil Dead.
Stephen King, author of Carrie, said, "Evil Dead is the most ferociously original horror film of the year. If you think he's kidding, see for yourself." Evil Dead. They got up on the wrong side of the grave. Evil Dead from New Line Cinema.
Now playing at these theaters.
Yeah, I love this movie. I actually saw the second one before I saw the first one, and I think out of the two, I think Evil Dead 2 is probably my favorite because they're sort of the same movie in a way. Like, if you watch both of them, you're like, okay, this is sort of like the same setup, same story, which is basically Bruce Campbell and I think they're a bunch of college kids. They go to like a cabin in the woods. And then all of a sudden they read from the Necronomicon, that evil book. You should
never read from the Necronomicon. Didn't they teach you that in kindergarten?
Right. I know. and once that happens, they start, they unleash the evil spirits, and then they start possessing everybody, and everything goes crazy. But I think what happened was the first one was like really good. I loved the original one, but then the second one, they sort of like streamlined it and made it even tighter and better. It was more like, I don't know. I just loved the look of the second one more. It was more like the production design was a little bit better. And, the first one is like, it's just a little bit more low budget and more like kind of like, homemade type thing. But I still love it though. I love both.
I think that one thing happened, and I'll get to which one's my favorite in a second. But I think what happened is the first one was lower budget.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And for that reason, some of it came across as a little bit goofy.
Yeah.
But then they realized that the goofiness was what people liked, and so the second one is goofy on purpose.
It's very funny. Like, it's called Splatstick, which is like splatter and slapstick. So if you watch both of those, you'll see.
And so the footnote is that's why I don't like it as much as the first one.
Okay, well, when I saw the second one, I was like, I think I was like 13 years old. I just was like, what the hell? Because I was so used to watching like regular horror movies like Psycho and like Friday the 13th. Then I saw Evil Dead 2, and I was like, wow, this is like crazy stuff. It's like Three Stooges meets like splatter films or something. I just loved the mix of it. I just loved that humor and the over the top stuff, and just all that, everything. I just loved it.
I just wish that they never made what's the third one?
Army of Darkness.
Army of Darkness, because then they went full on comedy.
Yeah, they kind of did get funnier.
Lost me.
But I don't know. I just loved the character of Ash. He kind of became like the the iconic, like an iconic character, which is, everybody, groovy, and, everybody knows his lines and everything. I just loved all that stuff.
And the script, you have to say that the script and the dialogue for Evil Dead, even though there's not a whole lot of dialogue in that movie, is really, really great.
Yeah, it is.
And I'm not sure, have you seen that Ash versus Evil Dead TV show?
No, I never saw that. No.
So if you like, especially the goofier parts of the franchise, then you will like the TV show.
Okay. Yeah, I have to check that out. I missed all that. But
I've seen maybe just the first couple episodes, and it's quite hilarious.
Yeah, that's really cool. And when did that come out? When did that start? I can't remember.
It's been a couple of years. I'm not sure how many seasons there are, but I think it got almost canceled and it got picked up again.
What channel was it?
Started on Amazon, but then it went over to, or it started on Hulu and then went on Amazon. Something
okay.
Like that.
Yeah, I didn't get that because I don't have those channels right now. So I didn't have those channels, so I missed that. But yeah, I love the
So I guess maybe just like you and I look at the movie, I think you could probably split the people into the pro slapstick camp and the pro serious movie camp.
Yeah,
I guess.
I guess so. I think, I mean, I like all different types of, like, it's sort of like Reanimator, the same idea. It has like that same type of like crazy, goofy slapstick, like dark comedy aspect to it. And I like that too, because really when you're watching horror movies, none of it is like, some of it is, it's supposed to be taken seriously, but then the other stuff is just too crazy to be taken seriously. It's just like, oh my God. Because a lot of times you'll watch like horror movies and stuff gets so gory and so over the top. It's just like, you almost have to laugh at it just to like, to be like above it. You know what I mean? It's like, it just gets so crazy and nasty. You have
what I like also is that, of course, the Evil Dead spawned kind of a sub-genre, which is the cabin in the woods genre, which is almost its own genre. And there's a movie called Cabin in the Woods, which is also
I saw that. I think I saw that. Yeah, that was pretty good.
And the flip side is there's other movies that take the slapstick part to the extreme, and a really, really great example for this is Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Oh yeah, I saw that. That's with the redneck guys. And they're
that's just funny as hell.
Yeah, that was a good movie. That was fun. I have to rewatch that, but it's been several years since I saw it. But I remember
I was skeptical, but that one's really funny.
Yeah, see, that's what I mean. So sometimes you'll find things that are supposed to be funny, but they're not that funny to you. Then you'll find other stuff that's like, you know what I mean, that just hits it right with you.
Here's where I'm curious. So I have not seen the remake of Evil Dead. And have you
I never saw that either. No, I didn't watch that.
So is that more on the serious side or more on the slapstick side?
Yeah, I think it probably was more serious. I think I haven't seen it, so I can't say. But I never watched it. So,
because that's just gonna creep me the hell out. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I think I think whenever they do remakes, they try to like do something like that has more weight to it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like an arms race. Who makes the goriest, scariest stuff?
I just don't care. Like I like the original stuff. I don't like, I don't really go for a lot of the remakes. I mean, every once in a while you'll see a decent remake, but it doesn't happen very often, I don't think.
Yeah, and interestingly, now that we're gonna get to the rest of the list, all the movies that are left on the list, they all have remakes, good ones and bad ones.
Yeah, they all do. It's just, but still, we're still here talking about these originals, and you know what I mean? I can't,
they're timeless.
They're okay.
Timeless.
Yeah, I mean, they're okay. These remakes are, I don't even like the remakes of these, actually. I don't think I like any of these. I mean, the next one on the list, that was pretty good, but I don't know. I just go for the originals. I love the original movies.
And I think more people, the problem is obviously that, most big movies are made for the average audience, and the average audience is like a 14-year-old teenage girl or whatever. Not just in statistical terms,
Right.
But I wonder if more mainstream folks out there if more of them would be aware of the original, if they might not even like the original. Because I think there's an assumption in the industry that you cannot show these old movies to kids anymore because they're not going to like them. I don't know. Have they tried?
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's
some of these kids might be kind of impressed how great these old movies are.
Well, that's part of, we have to keep cinema alive, and you have to keep, bringing these movies up and, explain, tell people about them. And, we have to, that's part of, when you're a film geek, you have to keep doing that, pass them down to different generations. You know what I mean? Show your kids these movies, show them Cannibal Holocaust, show them Friday the 13th, please.
Says, show your kids Cannibal Holocaust.
Please keep them in the public consciousness.
Yeah, no, that's important. And I think that's also, that's what we're all about with our websites. And this is more than just the movies. This is part of our cultural heritage.
It is.
And once that gets lost, what's that going to be like? The 15th sequel of Fast and the Furious, and I don't know, 15th. Another superhero movie, and we need to make sure that there's always an interest in original works.
That's why we have our websites. That's why we started out to keep these movies, because because when we started these websites, they weren't really. People knew about them, but that's what we were trying to do, really, wasn't it? We were trying to kind of like spread the word, the gospel of Grindhouse, as you once said.
There's only so much we can do, but I think whenever some kid somewhere older, new, discovers another classic and decides to go out and buy a Blu-ray of it, then that's a victory for the art form.
It is. It's all we can do is just show our enthusiasm for the movies, and just try to share what we love about them and that type of stuff. You know what I mean? It's up to everybody else to go out and check them out and take our suggestions or whatever, or not.
Yeah, trust us, we're lawyers.
Trust us, we're lawyers.
So we're down to the top 3.
Okay, number 3 is.
Is it your turn or my turn? I forgot.
Is it my turn? I guess it's my turn. Okay, number 3 is Dawn of the Dead from 1978, directed by George A. Romero.
In 1968, George Romero brought us Night of the Living Dead. It became the classic horror film of its time.
It gets up and kills. The people it kills get up and kill.
Now, George Romero brings us the most intensely shocking motion picture experience for all times. Dawn of the Dead.
This situation must be controlled before it's too late. They are multiplying too rapidly.
Night of the Living Dead has ended. Dawn of the Dead is here.
Not that room, not that room!
They must be destroyed on sight.
Dawn of the Dead. This picture contains scenes of violence that may be considered shocking. No one under 17 will be admitted. Dawn of the Dead.
And this is, this is one of the most. This is probably like when he was at the height of the zombie craze, I guess, back then. You know what I mean? Because he had made Night of the Living Dead before this, and this was the second one in the original trilogy. So, it's a very popular film, I think, with film geeks. People love this one a lot, since obviously it's number 3. So, so it takes place at a mall, pretty much. That's where the setting is. And the zombie hordes are closing in, and I think there's 4 main characters in the movie, and they're trying to fight off the zombies and stuff like that. And it's just it's really an iconic film, classic.
And it's also a very prototypical zombie movie.
Yeah.
In as much as it takes the simple tropes of the location that is threatened from the outside, and everybody is holed up and tries to survive, and then as most of these zombie movies, there's also an enemy within, or maybe not an enemy, but always also a conflict,
right.
And that always turns out to be the weak spot.
And also, it's also a commentary on consumerism, because obviously it takes place in a mall, and the people are trying to fight against the zombies, and what is going on there? We're looking at it from
who are the zombies?
Right. Who are the zombies in this thing? Are the zombies us, or are the zombies the actual zombies? You know what I mean? We're turning into just consumer zombies. So that was an interesting little aspect of it too.
Yeah, and I mean, even though it's a little in the late in the 70s, there's still some really obvious aspects of racism and police brutality. And I think hints of the Vietnam War.
Yeah, and there was a lot of good action in the movie too. Remember the motorcycle gang? Tom Savini, I think, is in the motorcycle gang, and they kind of raid the mall at one point. That's a fun sequence. But one of my favorite sequences in the movie, other than the gore stuff, is when the four characters, they start going shopping in the mall, and they're just like, it's sort of like a little dream like we all have. Like, what would it be like if
I was just gonna say that
you want to have? Yeah, they just take all types of stuff. They go shopping. They buy, or they don't buy anything. They just take all the different They go through all the different stores, and it's just really, I love that little montage sequence.
And then in movies like this, there's always the little what I call the Home Alone phase, where they start rigging the place. With
that's awesome too. Yeah, I love that.
I think just because we're big on trivia, this was a U.S. European co-production, and we've touched on Argento, and this was something that Romero did together with Argento, and
they did another cut of the movie.
That's the reason why there's more than 2 cuts out there. So Argento made his version for the European market, and Romero made his one for the U.S. market. Right. And they are not radically different visions, but the US version is in some respects a little bit more lighthearted, and at some point I would say, and has different music. Yeah. Whereas Argento's has a different tone in a few moments, and has obviously, I think is it Goblin? I forgot. It must be his. They're his guys.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's the Goblin soundtrack, but I haven't really seen the Argento cut as much as the original cut, so I can't. You know what I mean? I can't really remember all those little details.
Yeah. I have to say, I don't think I've ever seen the Romero cut.
Okay.
A couple years when the restoration came out over here, is of course been the Argento cut.
Right. And then isn't like the I'm trying to think, wasn't there? And then with the Fulci film, was it? I can't remember now. Now I'm getting mixed up. Zombie 1979 Lucio Fulci movie Zombie was called Zombie 2.
Exactly, and for the reason that Dawn of the Dead was called Zombie 1 over there.
Yeah, that's right. It was some weird thing they were trying to capitalize.
They played on this, and they sold it as a sequel.
Right, that's what it was. I for a second I was like, okay,
which makes no sense, because the one are like classic sickos, and the other ones are actually undead.
Right. Yeah.
More or less. Yeah. So
I'm trying to think. Well, actually,
it's just a marketing thing.
Yeah. That's right. I can't even remember the Dawn of the Dead were like more of like they were like, it was like a disease or something, right? Or something like, I can't remember. Like,
and the funny thing was that when I watched the restoration in theaters, that was during the first kind of wave of COVID.
Oh my God!
And we're all sitting in the movie theater with our masks on.
Yeah, is this us?
Is this us?
But then the Fulci zombie movie is like voodoo, I think, isn't it?
That's more like So the dead get resurrected because this guy does some.
Yeah, it's not like a disease. They're like the voodoo thing. But I love now the movie I love that's not on the list is Zombie. That's my favorite. I think that's my favorite zombie movie actually, but it didn't make this list for some reason. I don't know if it's even on this top 20. Zombie it must be on the top 20. I'm not looking at it right now, but that's my favorite zombie movie. I like them even more. I like it even more than the Romero films.
And it has. I would say they're completely different movie, like completely different kinds of movies also. Yeah. And for fans or for those who want to explore more of these movies, I would definitely recommend both of them wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
And you can get really great Blu-rays of
especially Zombie. That has an awesome. That's from Blue Underground, is it?
They even have a 4K one, and that looks like it was shot yesterday.
Yes, I mean that's an awesome thing. If you're gonna get a Blu-ray, of Zombie, get that one, the 4K one.
And Dawn of the Dead also. There's also new 4K, and in the UK you can even get the 4K version of both cuts. Yeah, whereas in for example Germany and Italy and whatever, if you buy them, you might get a set that has both cuts, but then only the Argento cut is on a 4K disc.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's a good
There's
point.
like a crazy amazing box out of the UK that has, I think it's a 6-disc edition.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's
has
so
all
much.
the radio things
Spots
on there.
the radio spots. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's for like the hardcore, like collectors. If you're gonna get it, get that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like the movie, but I'm probably not enough of a fan of the movie to splurge that kind of money.
Did you review the Blue Underground 4K one of Zombie? You did, didn't you?
I think I did. So that must be on the GCDb. So we'll link that.
Yeah, that was an awesome looking disc. Okay, so should we go to number 2?
Yep.
Okay, number 2 is
number 2 is another slasher. It's Halloween.
Halloween.
Newsweek magazine calls it a superb exercise in the art of suspense, the most frightening flick in years. Halloween. The Chicago Sun-Times says it's so scary, I would compare it to Psycho. It's the kind of picture, says the Chicago Tribune, that forces you to sleep with the lights on. A masterpiece, says New York's New Times. Halloween, from Compass International, rated R.
That's like, about as famous as it gets.
A couple of weeks away from Halloween.
Yeah, Halloween Kills, I think, is coming out soon. I don't know when exactly it's coming out, but the newest one.
It's almost like this is a franchise that's just as hard to kill as
Michael Myers. Yeah, I mean, it's like, but I actually saw the last one, the one with the newest one of the remake, and I liked it. I was like, wow, I can't believe I liked this movie. I was like, because I'm so used to watching like remakes that are like crap, you know what I mean? And this one was like I was really into it. I loved it, and so I'm looking forward to the next one, Halloween Kills, with the whole. I guess it's going to wrap it up.
I'm pretty sure that I've seen the original Halloween, and I might have seen one of the sequels, but I don't think I've seen any of the others.
Yeah, I mean, so out of the slasher stuff, I love the original Halloween. The second one is pretty good too, but out of this series, I'm not like the biggest fan of the series that much compared to like Friday the 13th. Like I said, I'm definitely a Friday the 13th Jason guy, not like a Michael Myers guy. But I mean, I love the original Halloween though.
Would you say that part of the success of Halloween is the fact that you can be a character of Halloween on Halloween?
Yeah, I mean that probably helped a little bit, having the horror movie set on Halloween. You know what I mean? It's like, that probably did help.
I mean, it's a good little
kind
thing. It's a good recipe for success if you have a character in a mask.
I mean, it kind of worked out.
A memorable soundtrack.
Yeah. And if you're talking about like Grindhouse cinema, I mean, this one is about as as basic low budget Grindhouse as it gets. I mean, the whole, just the whole concept of, having the thing on Halloween and, just the whole setup and everything, the whole promotional thing. So that's like, it's just like, it's like Friday the 13th, I guess, did the same thing, obviously, because of the, it's like the evil day, like that special day. But, it's just, And
it has all these, I mean, I remember rewatching it. It must have been, I'm not sure, maybe a couple of months ago even. It has all these jump scares in there that are really scary jump scares, but also at the same time they make you, I don't want to say laugh about yourself. Like they're always like, oh my God, why did I laugh? Why did I get scared because of that? I mean, wasn't that predictable? Yeah. And then there's another one that's just as predictable, but still it scares the fuck out of you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know. But then it also like employs those point of view shots. The whole movie is like those shots. Like, so, I mean, you can see where that came from, like the Giallo films, and then Black Christmas kind of like was like, you know what I mean? Even did it before this. So it's like I don't think a lot of people saw Black Christmas, but they saw Halloween.
Yeah. And I mean, if you were to like recut Halloween and not show the killer until the very end, and maybe make it a little, less cuts, more artsiness, it would be a Giallo.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very close to that. I mean, I think those two movies especially like really took the Giallo formula and really just kind of Americanized it. Basically, I just you know what I mean. It's very obvious that. But
and they combined another, I think,
which was a good idea though, very smart idea.
It's a smart idea, and I think they combined it with something else that was really important for the success. They combined the aspect of this could happen to me. Whereas the Giallo, if you look at Giallos, a lot of the victims in Giallos are
very wealthy people,
rock stars, wealthy people, and so forth. And whereas the slasher genre here, this basically your neighbors getting slaughtered.
That's a good point. It's just like in your neighborhood, so that really made it scary. Just to like have it like set in some like little neighborhood somewhere that's like your town. Just like
I'm not sure if that's like a Reaganite thing where you don't trust your neighbors anymore, and maybe because of the crime was on the rise in the late 70s, early 80s.
Could be some of that.
They were like inherent fears that the audience had, and more people thought like diversion in big mall theaters, and then you would go into the mall theaters and see a movie where people are getting slaughtered at the mall or the zombies. So they basically brought horror home.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. I mean, that's really what made them so scary, because then if you're a kid going to summer camp and you watch Friday the 13th, you're like, oh shit. You're like, oh crap, now I'm in trouble.
Yeah, it's also the ultimate nightmare of a parent is knowing that there's horror movies out there that are going to spoil the activity that you want to send your kids to.
Yeah, very creepy stuff.
I don't want to know how many kids phoned home like, Mom, can you pick me up from summer camp?
I'm sure that happened a lot too. They freaked out after they saw those movies, the summer camp films.
And they're like, I told you not to watch that.
It's like, and especially like if you like watch Last House on the Left or something, that's even like really like close, creepy stuff. It's just basically like crazy people that are like, that kidnap a couple girls and they just kill them. You know what I mean? It's just that's very, very real.
To the last one on our list.
I mean, that was almost like, and the next one on our list, those two are almost sort of like similar in a way, because it seems very realistic, very close to home type,
but
stuff.
Also very different.
Yeah, different atmosphere too, But this, the next one, is it my turn to do the?
It's your turn. Yeah, you have the honor of doing number one.
Okay, number one. You have the honor of doing number one. Okay, the number one pick is Texas Chainsaw Massacre from 1974, directed by Tobe Hooper.
Hello? Anybody home?
Sally, I hear something. Stop.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre from New Line Cinema. Rated R. No one under 17 admitted without parent or guardian. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
And that's one of my all-time favorites too, for sure.
Yeah, mine too. I have to say that, not only is it another one that is so notorious.
Yeah, it's so well known.
I think over here it was like banned until the early 2000s. I think.
Holy cow!
And it's also notorious because its reputation is almost heavier than the substance of the movie itself.
It is. Well, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The name itself, is so like it's so shocking to you. But
the idea of the movie is almost you could feel like it was almost too much for people to even wrap their heads around.
You're expecting and then the crazy thing about the movie is, as everyone knows, is there's basically no blood in the movie. There's I think there's one drop of blood in the whole film shown. There's like nothing.
There's no massacres and no chainsaws.
Yeah, well, there is some chainsaws, but I don't think you even see anybody getting cut or anything. Maybe like one little shot or something.
Yeah,
and then
that's
what's crazy about it. Yeah,
that's what's crazy about it, and also that's what makes it so incredibly effective.
Right.
Like you hear the sound of the chainsaw and it gives you goosebumps, but the way it's shot, getting slashed on screen.
I think it's the way it's shot is what's creepy, and the suspense of it is what really creeps you out too. But another thing about this movie is that I don't know if people bring up very much, but it's also really funny too. I find this TCM wicked funny, and it's like, people don't think to say that very much, but for me, like when I first saw it, it scared the hell out of me. But then as I've gotten older, now I rewatch it, and it's almost like a black comedy to me when I watch it, just because of it's just so crazy. The characters are nuts, and Franklin, and just all these different things. The hitchhiker is just such a loon. It's just, and then they're at one point they're actually yelling at Leatherface like, because he saw the door up, so they're like yelling at him like he's like a little kid. It's just, the whole thing is so zany and crazy. It's just, I don't know, you just have to have a sense of humor, I guess. Like,
and there's a lot of things that I think make the movie stand out, and some of that stuff has been picked up by other movies of the genre, but a lot of things I would say you still only see it here. So some of it of course started that whole kids taking a detour and getting killed by hillbillies genre, whatever, where you have gazillions of movies still today.
There's always.
And then it spawned, of course, a franchise of its own, which also took a turn for the funny before returning to a turn to the to the serious.
Like, if you look at the poster for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's the Breakfast Club. It's like, that's what the poster is. So they took like Leatherface, the scariest slasher guy, and they put him in like a Breakfast Club pose with his chop top and grandpa, whatever. It's like right there. It shows you how funny it is. And like
and again, obviously, it goes without saying that I don't like the sequel at all.
Yeah, when I first saw the sequel, I was like expecting like really scary stuff, but the sequel is like just a total funny like comedy movie. Basically, to me, it's just really, it's even funnier than the first one, which is like, you know what I mean. And the first one has humor, like, dark humor in it, but it's not a total comedy. The second one is just basically just a comedy of like some chainsaw.
One of the reasons the first one might be funny is also because it has some things that today, just for example, it's teenagers doing stupid stuff. Even though the audience would, love.
Why are you doing that?
Why are you doing that? Why are you taking the guy on the wheelchair and wheeling him out into the bushes?
And they like, I think like one point, like he rolls down the hill, like, like in the very beginning of the movie, like the car goes by and that was like the first little part that made me laugh. Then another part that made me laugh was when it's like at the end of the movie, like when they're giving the hammer to grandpa to hit the girl in the head and he keeps dropping the hammer. I mean, that's like hilarious to me. They're like, come on, grandpa, hit her in the head. And he like keeps dropping it and the thing goes bong. It's like, it's just hilarious stuff. I don't know. I just find it so funny.
I think it's hard. It's hard today to find a movie that has that kind of effectiveness. Even though it must have been a super cheap. I think it was shot on 16 millimeter.
Yeah, I mean, very, very. That's another one where it's as low budget as it gets, but it's still like, it's just so
and crazy successful.
It just worked. Everything worked on that movie. It's just, God.
And here again, I mean, in this case, I have seen the first remake, and I'm on the record as a big Michael Bay hater.
Yeah, me too.
I have to say though that the remake, it worked. And
I'm trying to think if I saw the remake.
Aside from the fact that it was a remake and it's a sacrilege and whatever,
it worked. Even though,
I might even say it was a pretty solid horror movie.
Yeah, I think I might have seen. Was it Jessica Biel in that one?
Yes,
or is it another one. Yeah, I think I saw that too. I probably thought it was pretty good, but I mean, I'm so like anti Michael Bay, like from the old days.
From the old days,
I think I based half of my like film geek life on not being a Michael Bay fan. That's like part of my.
I think we might have started Curious Cinema just to fight Michael Bay.
We were like so anti. I mean, I kind of like, I'm not that hard, into it anymore. But still, back then we were like we hate his movies so much.
We were like I might have seen another one of the newer ones. I want to say around 2000.
They've done so many. I've lost track of like what they even are now.
But they turned into full on torture porn, and that's
I don't care for that. I don't really like. I'm not into the torture porn stuff at all. I just never, you know what I mean. I like the old school stuff. It's like, I just don't. I never really cared for that stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like, I'm not even, and I have to say, like, I have to admit something, as much as I love like horror movies and stuff, I'm not like a hardcore horror geek. Like, I don't like watch horror movies every day. And like, I'm not like, wearing like, slasher film shirts and stuff like that. I'm not, I love it. I love those movies, that we're talking about, but I'm not like just into horror and that's it. I like all types of movies. So
yeah, I like them not because they're horror movies, but because they're good movies.
Yeah, I mean, I just like them because they're good movies. I'm not like just hardcore horror like 24/7 or anything. But
so I'm trying to think of because when we look at these 10 titles, and as you mentioned earlier, it's a longer list out there, and some folks might pick a different one to be in a top 10. I think what goes for the genre, and I think how this ties in with the Grindhouse database and the exploitation idea is that all of these titles, they did a really great job at playing with certain elements and exploiting them. But the result was always a really, really good and creative movie.
Yeah, I mean, all these directors,
none of them are like cheapos,
Yeah, I mean, all the directors did a great job with these, taking like an idea and like, really pushing it all the way to the very limit of what they could do with. And the low budget thing is a big aspect too. I mean, they're not making like, $100 million movies or, these are very low budget films. So, I mean, they did great jobs with these, and you really used a lot of like artistic ideas and to really make something really that had a lot of impact and like really entertaining for those audiences back then, it's pretty special. I mean, they're still very special movies. That's why we have the site.
And
that's why we have our site.
I think they're also a great starting point, not just because it's Shocktober, but they're a great starting point, discovering some more of what these directors are, whether it's Fulci or Argento. They might not even be those directors' best movie or most known works in some cases, but I think they're great starting points.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, like, if you watch if you watch Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you can watch the second one, or you can watch, that one he made right after, which is Eaten Alive. Like, there's all different avenues you can go down if you watch these movies. Maybe not even horror stuff, because some of these guys made other movies besides horror. Like if you watched, The Beyond, you might want to watch a Fulci Giallo or something, or like, one of his Polizio movie, the Contraband, that Eurocrime movie he did, or, I mean, there's all different things. And George Romero.
I'm sorry. Yeah, continue.
I was going to say George Romero made the other stuff besides zombie movies too. He did some different types of movies. So.
Oh yeah, after his big successes, he tried to
he did a whole bunch of little movies.
Follow a few passion projects. There was this one about a motorcycle. It's not a motorcycle gang, but they're like
Night Riders.
They're on motorcycles, but they're basically knights,
like medieval knights, like on motorcycles, which was such a weird. But I love that movie. That's a fun little movie. You know what I mean, with Ed Harris and Tom Savini. Yeah. I thought that was a neat little kind of like a little offbeat film. It was fun.
And I just remembered that one of my, it's not one of my favorite movies, but one of the movies that I really got a kick out of is Life Force. And I thought that
Life Force.
It's so different from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you could see that Tobe Hooper had so much more in him. He was stuck with a 16 millimeter camera and some mafia money, and he made just a
mafia money. Yeah, right. I know, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, Life Force is like totally different. That's not even like the same different. It's a total different world than Texas Chainsaw. But I mean, that's a good one.
Life Force is a balls to the wall crazy
Matilda
movie.
May. I guess it's a space vampire movie, right? Space vampires.
Yeah, maybe that's one way of describing it.
Yeah. With Matilda May, that girl, with the naked girl running around, walking around.
You gotta have a naked girl.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a good movie too. But I mean, and then John Carpenter. Look at John Carpenter. He made he's made a few horror movies, but what about all the other awesome movies he's done? Assault on Precinct 13 and Big Trouble in Little China, They Live, and all those awesome movies.
Right, and it's almost like, at least in the broader public, some of these directors get reduced to the big horror blockbusters that they made, and it's a little unfair to them, because obviously I could imagine that some of them get tired of constantly being asked about this and that movie when they've done so much more. Also,
it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough because you make a movie and it's such a huge hit. They want to make then the studios come calling and they're like, okay, we want you to make more of those. And you're like, well, I don't really want to make more of those. I want to make this Western I've always dreamed of making. Well, we don't want the Western. We want this horror sequel. And then you're kind of screwed like after that. You know what I mean?
And I think some of them, and this goes for different genres as well. Some of them, if they were good negotiators, they would make deals like, okay, I'm going to make one more, but only if you also finance this other project that I have.
Right. It's just a game. You have to play that game. If hopefully you can do it. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm sure a lot of them kind of lost faith after a while. They were like, okay, I don't want to make this third sequel to, whatever the horror movie was, you know what I mean? So it's you have to play that game, but like Sam Raimi, who did Evil Dead, now he's in the Marvel universe, which is, I'm sure he's happy to be doing that. Doctor Strange too. So that's going to be a huge mega hit and stuff like that. So luckily he's still doing his thing. And, that's a good thing for me.
Yeah, they earned their chops doing horror movies, and they can use that kind of creativity and craftsmanship that they picked up doing these in low budgets, and now do big movies, but also really effectively.
I'm sure a lot of them wanted to use these movies as like a launching pad. You know what I mean? They wanted to do other stuff, and they figured if they had a few good hits with like some genre film, like whatever it was, horror or whatever, they could do some other stuff.
And so many directors got started out with horror and splatter. I mean, Peter Jackson.
Yeah, Peter Jackson, or sure, John Carpenter, or older. That's an older director, but out of the new ones, I'm trying to think of some other new ones that were started out. Well, I guess Sam Raimi's still around. He could be from in that list.
Yeah,
but they're definitely these types of movies are like very like much starting points for a lot of directors, and then they went on to other things. And we'll skip to the Deuce. What was playing on the Deuce? Remember? Let's see. Playing on the Deuce on October 2nd, 1978 at the Rialto Theater. Teenage Fantasies and Coming of the Angels. I haven't seen either of those. Victory Theater, Seduction of Amy, French Schoolgirls, and Cherry Hustlers. Those sound good.
I like Schoolgirls.
Cherry Hustlers. That's a good one. At the Lyric Theater, Warlords of Atlantis and Zardoz. Did you ever see Zardoz?
I have. That's a Borman movie, right? It's
crazy. That's a WTF movie. What the fuck?
Yeah, that must have been his weirdest movie.
I mean, it's like, going from like Deliverance and like, those movies to like Zardoz. It's like, what the hell? What was
the other one is that like a post-apocalyptic kind of movie.
Yeah. Warlords of Atlantis. Yeah, I don't think I've seen that one. I've seen Zardoz yet though. Okay, at the Times Square Theater, Thank God It's Friday and The Greatest. So that Thank God It's Friday, I guess, was like a disco-ish type movie. Like with like, I think the Village People were in it or something. I don't think I've seen that. The Greatest, I think, was a Muhammad Ali documentary. I think something like that. People have to look that up. Okay, at the Apollo Theater, there was an Andy Milligan triple bill of Bloodthirsty Butchers, The Rats Are Coming, The Werewolves Are Here, and Torture Dungeon, which sound really fun.
That sounds like a wild night.
Budget horror movies. Then at the Selwyn Theater, Who Will Stop the Rain and The Outfit. Now, I've seen both of those, but The Outfit is one of my most favorite crime films. That's an awesome film with Robert Duvall.
I was just going to say Duvall, yeah.
And directed by the guy that did Rolling Thunder, John Flynn. You've seen Rolling Thunder, you know that.
Yeah,
one.
Rolling Thunder is one of our favorites.
Yeah, that's one of our favorites. Okay, at the New Amsterdam Theater, Go Tell the Spartans and Soldier Blue, which came up on another podcast. You know Soldier Blue.
Yeah, Soldier Blue is pretty good.
Movie. At the Cine 42 Theater, a double feature of Kung Fu, Young Dragon and Five Fingers of Death. That's a popular film.
Five Fingers of Death is, of course, also one of our all-time favorites.
At the Harris Theater, Eagle's Claw and Furious Monk of Shaolin. Those are, I don't think I've seen either of those. Maybe Eagle's Claw, but I haven't seen Furious Monk. Okay, at the Liberty Theater, Eyes of Laura Mars and Stranger and the Gunfighter. Have you seen Stranger and the Gunfighter? That's like
that's like a crossover of a spaghetti western and a kung fu movie.
Yeah, Lee Van Cleef and Lo Lei are in that.
It's not a really good movie, despite the names.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Eyes of Laura Mars, that was a pretty good. That was almost like a Giallo. That was sort of like a Giallo type movie from that time.
I'm not sure if I've seen that.
You have to see that. If you watch it, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's definitely like The Psychic. Have you seen Full Cheese The Psychic?
Yeah.
It's sort of like the American version of that. If you watch it, you'll check it out. Empire Theater, Karate 1x1, Street Gangs of Hong Kong, and Double Rider. I haven't seen any of those, I don't think. And then at the Anko, Revenge of the Pink Panther and Barquero. I think I've seen Revenge of the Pink Panther, but I haven't seen Barcaro.
I've seen Barcaro. Barcaro it's not an Italian Western, but it's a European made Western.
Is that Lee Van Cleef?
Lee Van Cleef,
Yeah,
he plays a guy with a well, he has like a little ferry, but it's a bark. That's why it's called Barcaro.
Barcaro. Okay. That sounds interesting. Okay, so that's the rundown of what was playing on the Deuce on this day in 1978. Okay, so I guess we're on to our Blu-ray picks, huh?
Yeah, and I think what's great about, before we go into the titles, I think it's great that so many more obscure movies are also getting like really, really good releases.
Yeah,
like
that's
it's
true.
almost like it's the golden age of being a fan of these movies. Like
definitely.
In the end, we'll get to the Blu-ray calendar that we do, and it's amazing how much money you can now spend on really great quality discs of the most obscure, sometimes even shitty movies. Like, I think we can say that some of the movies are shitty, but you can get them in 2K restorations with an audio commentary and all these things.
I mean, it's good. It's good that they're doing that. But then there's another aspect for me. Like, I love that they're releasing all types of films, but you have to personally, I have to keep my taste of what I want to watch. Like, I'm not just going to buy a bunch of DVDs. I mean, a bunch of Blu-rays because they're released on Blu-ray. I have to like the film or be interested or think it's a good film. There's a lot of movies that are being released on Blu-ray that I think that are total crap. That are so even some stuff that we'd have on our website, but it's I'm not going to buy it just because it's on Blu-ray. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want to buy good stuff that I think is good, like good movies. I'm buying it for the movie, not for the Blu-ray.
What I've started doing sometimes, especially when I can't find the movies to stream somewhere, I still buy them if they're up, but then I just sell them.
Yeah, I mean, you have to
then maybe I it might have cost me then $4 or $5, but I bought them for 20 and I'm selling them for 17. And
it's like a thing where if I'm collecting stuff, I'd probably if I was rich, then I'd buy everything and I wouldn't, whatever, that would be fine. But since I'm not rich, I'm not going to go out and buy 50 Blu-rays, especially if they're not movies I have even seen yet. I mean, why would you know what I'm saying? If it's different if you love the movie. But then you're going to be buying a bunch of stuff you haven't even seen. And then you're going to have the film sitting on your shelf and okay, I watched it and it's not even that good. So now I have Blu-ray and what am I going to do?
But the beauty is that now that those fans who do want to watch certain movies, they have a really great choice out there. And it's no longer like in the early 2000s where you had all these shitty full screen 10 movies on 3 DVDs for $5 and they're all pan and scan. It's everybody. Now, if you like a movie, you have a chance of seeing it almost as it was intended.
Yeah, that's good. So I'm just talking about. Okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about spending dropping so much money on stuff. Yeah. I mean, I just have a certain view of that. That's and some people want to go buy everything. That's up to them. That's their call. But for me, I gotta keep my keep some keep my list down to something that's more what I really, really love as opposed to just everything. So anyways, here's my first pick for the Blu-ray. It's Dementia 13 from 1963. It's a 4K director's cut directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This was his first movie, basically, his first legit film. I think he had made a couple sexploitation films before this, but this was his first real film. So it's a horror movie. And just a little quote from Francis Ford Coppola. Roger Corman wanted to make Dementia 13 cheaply. He wanted it to be a homicidal sort of copy of Psycho, gothic and psychological with some terrible knife killing scenes thrown in. So I wrote the script to order. And that's his little quote about what it was supposed to be about. Filmed in Ireland with leftover money after they had worked on The Young Racers, the movie they did before this. So
I might have seen that one.
Yeah, this is a good little. It's a perfect film for Halloween. It's set at a estate, and it's black and white, and it's very creepy, and it has to deal with inheritance and stuff, and there's an axe murderer loose on the estate, and they're trying to everybody's trying to figure out who it is and that type of thing. It's a good little film, good little cheaply made little black and white horror film from like the early 60s. And the special features, it's a new 4K restoration of the director's cut, supervised by Francis Ford Coppola. It has an introduction by him, an audio commentary by him, and there's a prologue. I guess it's a Dementia 13 test, and then the subtitles, and that's it for that pick. Yeah,
that's interesting because I like the early Coppola. I have to say,
yeah,
I like his early work.
Did you ever see The Rain People? I didn't really care for that one.
I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, it's
almost like because him and Lucas and Spielberg, they were like part of, and also Scorsese, they were like almost like a gang, and all their early work is super interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting, but there's I have to pick and choose certain ones. Like I love THX 1138 by George Lucas and Boxcar Bertha by Scorsese. I'm not, it was a pretty good film, but I mean, it's not as good as Mean Streets, of course. I think Mean Streets is the best one. But anyways, we're kind of going off the path here. You go with your next BluRay.
So yeah, so one movie that I really liked, and it just came out also on a 4K disc by Blue Underground, is Dead and Buried. And that's also a really wild horror splatter movie that has like I want to say a touch of the Body Snatchers maybe, and the restoration looks, again, as all of their 4K discs do, they look pristine. And I picked this one. And it's probably not my favorite of their recent releases, but it's a really entertaining and really well made movie.
That's a zombie movie too, isn't it?
But I would call it a zombie movie. Yeah. It's probably good if whoever hasn't seen it is not knowing too much about it. There's some stuff in there that will make your toenails
your
curl up.
Your toenails curl, make your toenails fall off. Yeah, but I mean, I think when I first watched that, like I didn't know what the hell the movie was about. Like I remember watching it for half the movie, and then like by the end, then you realize what's going on. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that's what makes this movie so special. And I picked it as a stand-in for, I would say, most of the recent Blue Underground re-releases. I mean, not to plug too much of their work, but considering that they have kind of focused and limited their catalog a little bit, all of their releases are now distinguished because of their quality. And it's a lot of the horror titles and splatter titles. I mean, House by the Cemetery looks great.
And then I think they're doing Toolbox Murders too. I think
Toolbox Murders will be coming out soon. They did Vigilante, which was really great. And we already mentioned Zombie. And a few more obscure titles, but they all look incredible. I mean, not all of them are probably reference quality, but most of them, like if any label is doing 4K really well right now, I want to say it's Blue Underground.
Yeah. I'd really like to do an episode on Vigilante and in Walking the Edge or something, just like a Robert Forster exploitation episode or something.
We should do that.
We love those.
And of course, Dead and Buried, just like the other discs they do, they have newer and older audio commentaries. They have tons of interviews on them. Some of them, I think they've stopped doing it, but some of the older ones, they have always been 3-disc editions, but also the soundtrack on a CD, like for those who still listen to CDs.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
That's a lot of effort that has gone in these, and those are really.
They really do. When they put them out, even Grindhouse releasing, whenever they put stuff out, they don't do it that often. I mean, you know what I mean. But when they do, they really pack it full of awesome extras.
It's almost like you said just a minute ago. You can't buy everything, but if I were to recommend to a newcomer, say which label you can blindly buy their stuff, Underground and Grindhouse releasing.
And I think most of the 4K stuff is always the best movies too. I mean, they usually, those are the best examples of the films of the genre that are on 4K usually. I mean, I don't think they're not releasing too much stuff that's not the best on 4K.
I mean, obviously tastes will vary, but none of them are stinkers.
Right. So, what's am I next on the list or to go?
Yeah. What's your next one?
I'm trying to think what I got here. I picked a Roger Corman movie called Tomb of Ligeia, which is sort of like it's another Edgar Allan. I think it was the last Edgar Allan Poe adaptation he did. I think
he did a lot of those.
Yeah, he did a bunch of them, right? Like Pit and the Pendulum. And he did a whole list of them. But this was in the screenplay by Robert Towne, who went on to do Chinatown and The Last Detail and many other good screenplays. And this is a Martin Scorsese favorite. I think this is one of his favorites of Roger Corman's his career. And it's another kind of gothic horror tale. I won't spoil too much about it, but it's Vincent Price. He's always great in those movies. So if you're a Vincent Price fan, you'll really like this one. It's it takes place. I think it's like a gothic story, and it takes place like in the the old days, not medieval days, but back in like the 1800s. I think it's that type of set in that type of area in England, I think. But it's very good. I think people will like it. And I'll read the special features. It has new audio commentary by Tim Lucas, who's always good for audio commentaries.
That's true.
One by Roger Corman, another one by actress Elizabeth Shepard. Trailers from Hell with Joe Dante.
Those are always fun.
Yeah, those are fun. Theatrical trailer, limited edition O card, whatever that is. Optional English subtitles. That's that one. Yeah.
Yeah, those early Cormans are interesting because obviously a lot of folks associate him with like a cheap 60s drive-in flicks, but he started out with these kind of movies.
He made, all those Edgar Allan Poe movies are like awesome, for really, really low budget, quickly made. He really did amazing work with those, I thought. Crazy when you watch those. They hold up so well.
That's true.
Yeah, and that's released by Kino Lorber, by the way. That title.
That's also a great label.
Yeah, and also we should mention kinocult.com, which just started the other day. That's that new streaming. It's free streaming. Cult movies, exploitation films that everybody can watch on that site, which is really cool. I haven't watched anything yet, but I will probably.
That sounds good. Yeah, because with Kino, they've become kind of a big label, and they release tons of stuff. And I wouldn't vouch for all the titles that they release, but they're really solid in terms of quality.
Yeah, they release
not all their discs are like the best versions of the movies. There's one or the other spaghetti western where they didn't get the longer uncut version or so. But they do a great job at making a lot of catalog titles accessible to fans.
Did they release? Were they the ones that released the Sergio Leone movies, or was it?
They tried and failed and tried again with The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and that's out in 4K.
Yeah.
And next year they're going to do the other $2 movies, I think.
Okay. All right. Your turn on the list.
Yeah, the next one I think is a favorite of both of us, and also a Tarantino favorite. And I wouldn't say it's a classic example of exploitation in Grindhouse cinema, and that's Switchblade Sisters.
Yeah, that's one of my all-time.
Jack Hill, and obviously, other than the qualities of the movie itself, which I want to get into in just a minute, one of the good things is that you can now get it fairly easily on a really good Blu-ray. So in the US and the UK, you can get one from Arrow Video, which is also one of the greatest companies right now for
they put out awesome
items.
Stuff. Yeah,
and if you're lucky and you get your hands on the out-of-print German disc, the benefit of that is that one has all the extras from the old Rolling Thunder release, including the Tarantino stuff.
That was a good comment.
Not all of that stuff is on the Arrow release, unfortunately.
Yeah, they don't have that was one of my favorite commentaries, Jack Hill and Quentin Tarantino on the Switchblade Sisters. That was really good. And there was also a really cool little short movie, like The Host, I think it was called. And they say that's where Francis Ford Coppola came up with the idea for Apocalypse Now or something. I think part of that story or something.
Okay.
You'd have to see it. It's been so long since I watched that, but I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. Because you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh yeah, that's like Colonel Kurtz, like the story of you'd have to see it, but it's been a long time. But anyways.
And one of the reasons I like Switchblade Sisters is that they did so much with so little, but not necessarily on the craftsmanship level. Like they didn't, they're not, Jack Hill is no Robert Rodriguez. He didn't go all out on special effects, but it's a movie that's so intense because of the characters and the level of detail in the story and I want to say the seriousness of some of the subject matter, but wrapped in this kind of teenage gang kind of.
Yeah, I love that movie.
Thing,
awesome film.
It's not corny, and yet doesn't take itself too seriously.
And they always
rough. It's really a rough movie.
And they always mention like that there's always like that Shakespearean aspect with Patch as being Iago or something like that. Like they're always talking about that, and like she's like playing Maggie and Lace against each other and stuff. I just love that whole.
In that aspect. Way, it's also like a really, as you said, it has its Shakespearean qualities, and it doesn't hide them, but it also doesn't pretend to be
more than
things
else.
that it isn't. But
it just does it great.
Doesn't have to hide.
Yeah, it does
others.
It does it like in a way where it's like it's just a modern version of that, but it's not like overdoing it, and it's not not making itself up to be bigger than it is, or what I mean. It's just like that theme is like showing up like in that relationship with those characters, which is really.
And so the discs, for those who want to get it, I really recommend it because it's also extremely rewatchable.
Yeah.
And both of the discs, whether you get the Arrow disc or the out of print German disc, maybe there will be re-releases. So now it's easy to get. There was a time where it was hard to get. They have audio commentaries. They have interviews on them. They have, I think, alternative intros because it was also marketed as the Jezebels at some point. And the quality is really great. So they did a really decent restoration of these prints that they had access to. So that's really a recommendation. I want to say for that category of what are the quintessential exploitation movies to put in the collection? I would say this is one of them. Yeah,
that's definitely one of them. And several of Jack Hill's films I'd put in the collection, like Coffee and Foxy Brown and all those.
I recently bought Spider Baby. I haven't watched it since, but it's also a really great one. Yeah, that's a
good one for this month too, for the horror month.
Yeah, maybe I'll rewatch that.
Yeah, that's a fun little weird, creepy little funny movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one on my list is The Chinese Boxer, aka Hammer of God, it was released that way in the United States when it came out, and it's directed by Jimmy Wang Yu, and it happens to be the first open hand kung fu film, it predates like the Bruce Lee's Chinese Connection, with that Chinese versus Japanese plot line that one had in it. And it's just one of those movies. It's one of the best kung fu films like of that era of the genre, really. But it came up before Bruce Lee was around. So, but I mean, it also has to do with like what I loved about this film was it has that same thing as Five Fingers of Death, where he dips his hands in like molten like lead or something, and then his hands become like super like invincible, and then he can like punch through like trees, and it's really cool. It's just one of the best movies ever of like the genre. And Lo Lei plays a bad guy in it, and it was a big influence on Kill Bill too. Really awesome film.
I think I might have seen this only recently. I think I bought the German DVD, but the new one's from 88 Films, right?
Yeah, 88 Films. Yep, and I think it's on US. It's US and UK. You can play it, so that's good.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite kung fu films of like the very early days. And for the extras, you have an audio commentary by Sam. I don't know how you say her name, Dane or Dahan. I'm not sure how to say it. Dane. Interview with Wang Cheng. Open hand combat has David West on The Chinese Boxer, and a U.S. Hammer of God TV spot, uncut. There's not a ton of stuff on there, but it's just, you're not buying it for the extras. You're buying it for the movie because if you love the film, it's just such a great film. I love it.
It's also, I mean, I'm obviously too young to, know Kung Fu movies from the days of video.
Yeah.
But it's such a joy to see a lot of these, and not the bad ones, but the good ones like this one, to see them in a widescreen presentation. And
these are really, these are
so much of the fighting choreography gets lost with the pan and scan of the old days.
You gotta watch these. Like if you're watching like a pan and scan, you're missing all the the fight choreography and the angles and stuff. So it's just like seeing them for the first time, really, in a way. That's what's good about releasing them on Blu-ray now, because it's like back in the old days, people didn't get to see them, in good condition. So now you get to see them really great in great condition, nice and clear and awesome. Yeah, that's one of my picks. What's your next pick?
So for the next one, again, I tried to pick one that that's an example for a few others as well. I've recently tried to fill some of my gaps in terms of Italian crime flicks, whether it's polizios, which are more focused on like a cop versus robbers, or mafia movies or gang movies. So this one's quite a rare one, but it's recently available on Blu-ray on both sides of the Atlantic. It's called The Sicilian Connection.
Okay.
That's, I think, the international English title. I think the original title is Afyon Opio, and Afyon is just, I think it's just a city in Greece or Turkey, and Opio, I think, stands for opium. So it's about opium smuggle. It takes place in Turkey and Greece and Italy and so on. And the crazy thing is it stars Ben Gazzara in a really great role in a way. I don't want to give too much away, because it's definitely not one of those standard polizios with a cop as a vigilante or a mafia, but it is a mafia movie, and it's also a cop movie. But it has this kind of exotic twist because of the locations, and it jumps locations also. And I thought, I watched it and I expected nothing of it, because it's really obscure in a way, but for all the wrong reasons, because it really soaked me in. I think I really highly recommend it, and
awesome.
If only to see Ben Gazzara in a really interesting.
He's a great actor. Role. Yeah, he's one of my favorite actors of that. Jackie Treehorn, as we know from Lebowski, and he was also in Roadhouse and a few John Cassavetes movies that I love too.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a really good actor.
And this one was made by Fernando Baldi.
Oh yeah,
and he's of course quite
he did
a
some
household
spaghetti
name.
westerns, right? Didn't he do spaghetti
westerns? Yeah, and he made some cheaper thrill movies, and he made some, I think, even Peplum. And and this one, I think it's kind of a overlooked gem kind of movie.
Yeah,
I really recommend it.
Sounds like a good one.
For those just getting into the Italian crime. One of the things is, of course, getting the Years of Lead collection that Arrow Video has just put out. That's one way of discovering the genre, to buy one of those boxes.
Right.
There's also a few of those boxes from Raro Video.
Yep.
And they're all decent quality. They can, they all come highly recommended. Yep. And if you want to go maybe more like super collector's edition, you can go, for example, with the Tough Ones, which is also a really great polizio.
I reviewed
that was one of the famous Grindhouse releasing discs also, and that one just came out in the UK also. So this is so the Sicilian Connection is my Blu-ray pick for this. But if you want to look at it as a segue into more of the genre, I would recommend getting one of these boxes, and the latest one being Years of Lead, and the Tough Ones just came out in the UK. I think there's also another one coming out in the UK, is A Freehand for a Tough Cop. And they star.
Right.
They star.
Those are all good.
Porno mustache.
Maurizio Morley. Porno mustache. Okay.
There's actually one. I think it's. I'm not sure if it's Highway Racer or another one where he's actually without the mustache, and everyone's like,
funny.
"Wow,
you're like, who's that guy?
Who's that guy?
That must be his brother, Mario Morley. That's not Mario Morley. But okay. So my next pick is I Spit on Your Grave, which is basically, if you're into Grindhouse movies, this is like basically one of the most well-known, popular or infamous, movies of the rape revenge genre. And it's another one like Cannibal Holocaust. I don't recommend rewatching it very often because it's very like disturbing and stuff, but
it's a rough one.
But like what it shares with that is it's a really well-made movie. It's just really well made. If you like look at it from like a thriller aspect, it's very, but it's, the rape stuff is like where it gets like really disturbing. That's like the real disturbing of, obviously, because it's just that type of stuff. But, another thing that I'm picking this for is because of the audio commentary with Joe Bob Briggs, because he really like delves into like, you know, the history of the movie and like, you know, why people thought it was so like terrible, but it actually really isn't, because it was actually like a really good like you know, like it's not just a revenge movie, but like, you know, like a redemption film. And like, you know, it really like the director, there's a whole story about why the director made the film, and that ties into it too. But it's just, I really highly recommend just because if you know the infamy of the movie, you'll see it from like a different perspective, and like it'll really open up your like, you know, you'll be like, okay, I understand it now. Now I like really like this movie, even though it's like really disturbing and like tough to watch. So I really recommend it. And there's tons of extras on this. It's a 3-disc release. So there's tons of like, you know, audio commentaries and like, you know, location footage and radio spots, still galleries. And, you know, there's even like a documentary, Growing Up with I Spit on Your Grave, which is like, I think the son or the daughter of the director, like kind of talks about like, you know, what it was about and stuff like that. And, you know, growing up and that type of thing. So
did you see any of those remakes and sequels?
No, I didn't see that. I didn't see any of those remakes. I didn't. I just saw the original. That's the one I liked the most. So
all right. So for my next one, I went back to one of the things we mentioned earlier, is that 60s atmosphere. And for me, one of the movies that really, you know, represents what I like about early 60s movies from Europe, that's Danger Diabolik.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Diabolik is, of course, not just a rip-off of, you know, spy movies and
yeah,
you know, expert burglars or whatever, but it's such a spoof, and it's such a trashy romp festival. I absolutely adore this movie, and not only is it just a super fun, trashy, retro vibe kind of movie that you can even play in the background with the sound off. But also, I mean, this was made by Mario Bava. And of course, Mario Bava is like the godfather of Italian Gothic, pre-Giallo. So it's more like the Gothic horror movies that he made in the late 50s, early 60s. Right. And for him to make kind of this trashy Euro spy, I love it. It's a satire, or what do you want to call it? It's not a comedy, but it's just ridiculous, basically.
Right. Yeah,
so
but I mean, I love
it.
It wasn't it based on like the Fumetti, like it was like an Italian comic book, I think, or something like that.
I think it was based on the Fumetti, and it was also, I think, based on a number of probably really popular heists that were reported
really
in
happened
those days. Where you know, those were like the 50s or 60s. You could just rob a bank and walk away with it.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, you know, that's one of my most favorite movies. And also, you got to talk about the like just the set design and like, you know, the camera work on that is just crazy. It's just one of the best.
That's
awesome
where Bava absolutely shines, where he takes the skills that he has and applies them to something that is obviously trashy and shallow. And we have the kind of what we know from the Bond movies is these kind of super maniac, villainous caves and wherever the lair of the villain.
That's an awesome lair too.
It's a really awesome lair.
I love
bathing in money, and of course he has a super pretty
Marissa Mel.
Marissa Mel.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love that. And that awesome soundtrack.
Tricked out car, and of course he wears a cape and a mask. And the soundtrack was
Ennio Morricone.
Morricone going really wild and
I love that
upbeat
stuff.
And whatever.
That's an awesome film. Definitely an awesome movie.
And I have to say that for the longest time, this wasn't really available in a great quality. I mean, you know, there was always the Paramount DVD, which
That's
was
the one
okay.
I had. That's the one I had.
But you know, a couple of years ago, I think they came out with Blu-rays, and they're okay, but they're definitely not that kind of 4K restoration level. But they have I think the US disc is it from Severin or Severin, I think.
I'm not sure on that actually.
It might be Severin or so. There's some good extras on them. Might actually also be Tim Lucas. I have to check.
The commentary. That's a really good. It's him and John Philip Law, I think. Yeah,
John Philip Law.
That was a good one.
I had a buddy of mine. He spent the night in Los Angeles, and afterwards he like, you know what? Which kind of Airbnb I stayed at? That was John Philip Law's house. Do you know who John Philip Law is? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
That's the. He also did Barbarella too.
Barbarella, and he did
what was that?
Spaghetti Western also.
It's Death Rides a Horse.
Death Rides a Horse.
It's one of my favorites.
So apparently his house is on Airbnb somewhere in the Hollywood Hills.
Cool. I didn't know that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's definitely one of the best movies. I loved that from that era. That's one of my favorites.
So this is not the greatest Blu-ray ever. So this is not up there with the other 3-disc editions or whatever that we discussed. But if that's your thing, if that's anyone's thing, that's definitely one of those movies that kind of epitomizes the. Now we would call it the retro chic kind of thing about the 60s, but obviously back then, as you said, the set design and all that wasn't retro. That was how people designed their apartments, all the plastic and
that was
plush
crazy
stuff, and of course the obligatory J&B bottle.
The J&B, yeah, right. They always have to have that in there. It's funny.
So
who else was in that movie? Terry Thomas was in that movie. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and
he plays like the cop guy. I think.
Who's the other guy?
And what's that guy's name that was in? Was he in the James Bond movies? I'm trying to think.
It's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah,
too.
I know who it is too. And he was in some Eurocrime films too. Not Alfredo.
Adolfo Celi.
Yes, that's who it is. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, if you watch those movies, you've seen him in a bunch of different films.
And of course, it has some really. I mean, there's some stuff in Danger Diabolic that's still great today. Like some of the burglaries they pull off with the tricks, they're just hard.
They have some really awesome stuff, like the way they the thing with the car, like when they stopped and they changed the different colored car, like that was really cool too. You know that part when they go into the cave, not the cave, but like the tunnel.
Yeah, some of the tricks you might still see in maybe the Italian Job or one of those Mission Impossible movies.
Right. Yeah, that's really cool. I love that film. I think I first saw it on MST3K actually, but I didn't get to see like the full. Then I saw it for real.
That's mean.
Yeah, I mean, it was so much better when I saw. I didn't see it. I saw it with that commentary over it, but then I saw it without it, and it ended up being one of my most favorite films.
Yeah, and it's still, I mean, it doesn't at all take itself seriously, so it's almost mean to make fun of it because it's already making fun of itself.
It's almost sort of like it campy in a way, like Batman was, kind of like in that type of that type of tone. Not quite as goofy, but sort of like that.
Yeah, like the early goofy Batmans. I get what you're saying. Yeah,
yep.
And it's also like It's not like Diabolic is an anti-hero or something. It's the whole movie is not remotely about that. It's just I would say the movie is about nothing. It's just it's and say believes in nothing, Lebowski.
Right. Well, it's just like he's trying to.
To me, this is a movie that can be enjoyed on a level of enjoying what some of that era is all about, all the pop cultural references, the style, the look, the feel, the sound, and the attitude, the lightheartedness.
Yeah, it's very much that.
And it's not a full-on comedy, but it's just hilarious.
It does have some humor. There's always like that tongue-in-cheek aspect of it, which is like, you know what I mean, which just makes it more fun to. You're just kind of like it's so indulgent, like the way they live in that, like, that underground lair and like, bathing in money and stuff. It's just really fun and cool. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely one of my favorites of that time.
That was a great film. And I think I wrote a review of it, and I just was like, just saying how much I loved the film, and the set design and all the effects that Mario Bava did, and like all those like matte paintings and stuff. Like I just thought it was awesome. So like inventive, like that's what I loved about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You just
it's
put
almost
everything
like
together.
somebody. It's probably a contractual job that he did, but he was like, might as well go all on out.
Right. I mean, he really just did. He like used so many different ideas, and it's sort of like the Roger Corman thing. Like when he had no money to make the movie, so he had to really like come up with ideas of like how to make stuff like, on the cheap and have it work like, even on screen. So I just thought that was really awesome, very inventive film.
Yeah.
Yep. So next one on the list. Let's see. Well, I picked The Incredible Shrinking Man, which is like a 50s sci-fi classic. Sort of like it's about a guy that obviously he goes through, he's on this boat and he goes through this cloud of mist, and it turns out to be this toxic stuff that ends up making him shrink. He slowly starts to get smaller and smaller. And this is one of those movies where like the effects are like, a big part of it. Like watching him get smaller, he starts out his clothes get bigger and bigger, but then all of a sudden, he's sitting on the couch and like, he's like, the couch is like, 10 times bigger than he is. And he's like, it's like that type of stuff. And then the phone is really huge and he's just getting smaller and smaller. And then you're watching him. He's like, finally he's like in like the basement. He gets washed down into the basement and he's like, the cat is like chasing him and stuff. And spiders are like, he's trying to like evade the spider and stuff. It's just a really awesome film. And it's sort of a metaphor for life, I thought, because, just the person that starts out like really big and then all of a sudden they're shrinking and getting smaller and smaller until they just disappear off the face of the earth. It's just really this crazy like idea. But then I'll read the special features of the movie. So I guess it's a new 4K restoration, and it has a mono soundtrack with a new commentary by Tom Weaver, historian and horror music expert David Schechter. New program on this film special effects by experts Craig Barron and Ben Burt. A new conversation between filmmaker Joe Dante and comedian Dana Gould. We know them from their trailers from Hell and that stuff. Auteur on the campus, Jack Arnold at Universal, a director's cut, which is like a little like featurette on the director. Interview from 2016 with Richard Christian Matheson, novelist and screenwriter. That's Richard Matheson's son. And interview with Jack Arnold from 1983, an 8mm home cinema version from 1957, and trailer and teaser narrated by Orson Welles, and an essay by critic Jeffrey O'Brien in the booklet, I guess. And that's from Criterion, so the quality is going to be really good. And that's
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. It's a good movie for this horror month, even though it's not really horror, but it's like kind of like a good like late night sci-fi film.
I like some of the Jack Arnold stuff from because they as you said they're mostly not horror per se.
Yeah, they're like kind of atomic sci-fi.
Sci-fi or
right.
What's the one with the huge tarantula?
Yeah, Tarantula. Yeah, that's one of the first movies of that type that I saw when I was a little kid.
He also made a couple of westerns that are actually pretty good too.
Yeah, I can't remember the names of those, but yeah. But he was a good director from that era, the 50s, and
yeah, those are pretty good. He was a really solid. I think most of his movies are really good. I mean, I haven't seen all of them, but I've seen a bunch of them, and they're all. Jackie Arnold, I think as a brand goes for, this movie is going to be okay. This is going to be good, and they're all creative.
Right, they're always solid, like little movies. Like you can always depend on them, type of thing.
Yeah, he's a good filmmaker, good storyteller. Also,
yeah, very good. Your turn.
All right, so I'm basically going back to one of the genres we started out at this episode, and that's almost like a giallo. So. This one just came out, I think, in June. It's called, the international title is Puzzle.
Oh yeah, Puzzle.
It might also go by The Man Without Memory or so.
Yep.
And while you could call it a giallo and has some of the elements of a giallo, it's more like a psychological thriller in a way.
Yeah, they're sort of like similar. Those, you know what I mean? Those types of
it's not full on giallo. Like it's not all about the slasher or whatever.
Yeah, right.
But it's I like the setting and the it's like a slow burn in a way. I like that a lot, and
I think I just watched that actually. Yeah? I think I just watched that one like a few months ago.
For me, it's been longer. I remember that I absolutely enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It stars Santa Berger, and I think it is one of her more interesting roles.
Yep.
And Luc Miranda, I'm not sure if it's French or Italian.
Yeah, he was in.
He's a household name, and also the Polizio.
Yeah, right. So, that's what I was going to say. He's from the Polizio movies. He's in a lot of those.
In the Violent Professionals, which is also on Blu-ray. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
And this one, I think, I'm not sure if it takes place in Venice or on Lake Como or something, like a smaller town setting. And it has one of these elements that we've now seen a lot in those, I want to say, they're not home invasion movies per se, but a lot of these B pictures that you find on Netflix where it's like, is it the ex-husband who has like a shady secret, or is it the wife who finds out that she suffers from amnesia and she finds out there's like a darker truth?
There's always something.
Some of these elements that I think are actually, I want to say that they're rare. But they're not often used, and you can go really wrong as a director with that kind of aspect, because if you have a shitty screenwriter, this can turn out as a real dud. But this one is like it's not the most famous movie, but I think it's one that I would absolutely recommend. And if the Blu-ray is only slightly good, then I think it's a 2K restoration.
I think you're breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you're sliding.
I'm sorry. Is that better? Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I'm hearing like a lot of like sliding type sound.
Okay. So I think it might be a 2K restoration.
Yeah.
And if it looks halfway decent, I think that's absolutely a tip of mine.
Okay. Is that your last pick?
I think you might be the last on my list. So I think
I got two more.
I think you have three more, but your third, I think, can go for both of ours.
I'm trying to think here. Hold on. Oh yeah. I got three more. I'll try to go through them kind of quick, but these are definitely like ones I highly recommend. I'll just say that right off the top. So the next one is Nasty Habits, a nunsploitation collection, which has like 1, 2, 3, I think 4 films in it, which is like from Severin Films, and it's like, if you're into grindhouse cinema, you got to have some nunsploitation in there, and that's this is one of those things you should pick up. I mean, you'll have to watch. I think I saw one film out of this group, but I mean, or maybe 1 or 2, but that's really like those types of movies. If you're into that, then you'll definitely love to have this box set, and it's packed with all types of extras, like there's like extended cuts of the film. There's let's see. Interviews with actresses from the movie, and there's audio commentaries with Kat Ellinger. She's done a lot of like different, on horror movies and stuff like that. Yeah. And, it's packed with stuff. So you'll definitely love that one that's, one of those genres that's like, it's pretty like racy, but you'll enjoy it. It's worth buying. And then
there's probably the genre is of course, really I want to say a big subgenre, and one of the names that comes up, probably not in this box, but that comes up a lot, is Jess Franco.
Jess Franco. Yep.
He did a lot of those, and I find it funny that the reason that this box is coming out right now is because of the upcoming
Benedetta or something like that, right?
The upcoming
I got to see that one too.
Upcoming movie from one of our favorite,
Paul Verhoeven.
Paul Verhoeven.
We love his stuff.
Movies. Yeah.
I kind of wish he would like go back and make a Hollywood film again, like the one that he used to do. I'd love to see him like a Paul Verhoeven film one of these days come out. I'd love to go see something like that. Something
this one's supposed to be really racy.
But I mean, just like something that's like more like an action movie or something like RoboCop or like to see him do one of those, just one more would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe he'll return doing West, but I don't think for him it was such a great experience because
I guess not. But I mean, still,
such a free spirited guy. He doesn't like
those
censorship
movies
and all that stuff.
I know that, but still, we still love those movies. I love those films, Starship Troopers especially.
Yeah, Starship Troopers, great.
Okay, the next one on my list is the Shawscope Volume 1, which is a huge box set from Arrow Video, which has Five Fingers of Death. It has Boxer from Shantung, Five Shaolin Masters, Shaolin Temple, Mighty Peking Man.
I love that one. I love that one.
That was sort of like their version, Shaw Brothers' version of a kaiju, giant monster movie. Challenge of the Masters, Executioners from Shaolin, Chinatown Kid, The Five Deadly Venoms, Crippled Avengers, Heroes of the East, and Dirty Ho. I mean, how can you go wrong with that if you're into old school kung fu films? It's like packed with stuff.
And it's volume 1, so if they come
it's
up
only
with
that's only
one,
volume 1. Yeah, I mean, it's
crazy.
only volume 1. So I mean, you have high definition versions of all those movies. You get what else do you get? Audio, extras, bonus features. I don't even think I have all the stuff that's listed on the, that's actually in the thing.
I think some or most of them have commentaries.
Yeah, they have commentaries, critic appreciations, interviews with cast and crew, alternate credit sequences, trailers, image galleries, and probably a 60-page booklet on the movies. I mean, come on. It's like, that's like a must buy if you're into kung fu films.
I would say buy it just for Mighty Peking Man. I adore this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, Mighty Peking Man is good, but what about all those awesome kung fu films? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Five Fingers of Death and everything. Oh, that's awesome, So that's a definitely a must buy. That would be a good like Christmas gift if you're gonna buy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean? If you're thinking of gifting someone who's a movie fan, then this one's
get a nice box set of Shaw Brothers classics kung fu films. I highly recommend that one. And the last one on my list is the Ozploitation favorite, Man from Hong Kong, directed by Brian Trenchard Smith, and that stars Jimmy Wang Yu as the crazy Inspector Fang Sing Ling, who's from a Hong Kong cop who's in Australia to get a drug courier, played by Sammo Hung, another famous kung fu guy.
Yeah.
So he ends up fighting against Sydney's most powerful kingpin, played by George Lazenby, star of one of my favorite 007 films, On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I wish he had done more of those, actually, but that never happened.
Yeah, that was a fun movie.
Yeah, I love that. Really that's one of my favorite
movie, and it's kind of, I mean, Jimmy Wang Yu at that point, he was a superstar.
Yeah, he was like really. Yeah, I mean, this movie, he was like, this is after Bruce Lee died, of course. So it's like, he kind of like, he had a little run where he was kind of taken up, doing a lot of awesome films after his death. And this is one of his most popular films. And, he starred in The Chinese Boxer. So that was like, he kind of was like, he went from the very beginning before Bruce Lee even showed up. And then he was like still going after he was gone. But this one has like little elements of like, James Bond. And it's like, there's a lot of action fight sequences. He scales up like buildings and stuff and jumps off them. And, it's just a really fun, like, action adventure film.
And he's kind of a Casanova. He's always like,
he's with the, he's picking up the chicks, and it's just really fun. And then for fans of Mad Max, you'll see Hugh Keys-Byrne, and I think was it Roger Ward? I think is the guy that plays the cop in Mad Max, the other cop, and they play partners.
It's the late Hugh Keys-Byrne.
Yeah, late Hugh Keys-Byrne, but you know him as Toe Cutter, right? Toe Cutter from Mad Max, and he was also in Fury Road too. Yeah, he passed away. And then the special features on the disc, you get an audio commentary with Brian Trenchard Smith, who is always really fun. He's really good. If you watch his trailers from hell, he's really good at those. He's like so like succinct and like, I want to be able to like talk like that and just be like perfect and like the way he describes everything. And then Hugh Keys-Byrne and stunt director Grant Page are also on that commentary, which is like awesome. I don't know if anybody's seen Stunt Rock, but Grant Page is in Stunt Rock, and he did almost all the stunts for like the Ozploitation films, like even Stone and stuff. He did like the jump off the cliff on the motorcycle.
Probably even BMX Bandits.
Yeah, he did like everything. I'm not sure about BMX Bandits, but all those like early Ozploitation films, he did the stunts for most of them. Okay, and then not quite Hollywood interviews with George Lazenby, Rebecca Gilling, and Roger Ward.
Yeah, the Not Quite Hollywood is a good documentary.
That's an awesome documentary we got to recommend. Writer-director Brian Trenchard Smith is in there too, and executive producer David Haney, and second unit cameraman John Seal. And then there's the theatrical trailer on the disc. So there's some pretty nice little extras on that disc too. And that's from Twilight Time, I think. Twilight
that's from the. Is that the new Twilight Time, right?
Yeah, it was out before, wasn't it? And then it's like a re-release or something, I think.
Probably. And from what I've heard is it might there might be also one coming out in Germany next year.
Okay, the same, yeah. So you'll get your version, and that'll be awesome.
Let's see which one's better.
Yeah, I mean, it's just awesome to be able to see these movies like in good conditions. You know what I mean? Good versions.
Yeah, and this one,
clear Blu-rays.
I remember hunting after that, and then at some point, I think it came out probably only in Australia, and then you had to import the DVD, and it was not really a great DVD.
Yeah.
To see some of these movies become easy to get is almost, it's not like it's sad, it's of course great, but there was something about hunting that one disc down that you could only get in some faraway place.
It makes it more special to you in a way. So when you can just get everything, it's like it loses some of, but that's not really why if you're into movies, you just want to watch the movies and have them in your collection, and but I mean, I understand that aspect where it's like, it's just a different time. Like if you wanted to watch The Chinese Boxer or something years ago, you'd have to get some crappy VHS version or something. You know what I mean? That was like, now you can see it in a nice, crystal clear, beautiful, the way it was filmed 50 years ago, 40 years ago. More than that, 50 years ago. So
I think we picked some really, really good discs.
Yeah, I mean, those are good. They're all really if we're doing the Grindhouse Cinema 42nd Street podcast, so it's like, these are the movies that we'd get. These are the movies that we'd go out and get. So we're suggesting that other people go get them too.
I think for those listening, if you get only a few of those, you're definitely set for some.
You don't have to get all of them, but a few of them. If you're gonna get any of them, get like the box set ones of the Shaw Brothers, or like the nunsploitation stuff, like that type of stuff. That would be awesome. To just to start your collection out with. And definitely, I Spit on Your Grave too. Oh, all of them are good though. I like all of them. Switchblade Sisters. Yeah, I mean, Switchblade Sisters, Diabolic. I love all those movies. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's an awesome list. So I guess that about wraps up the first show, I think.
Yeah, I think so. What do we have left? We have, I think, at least two things left, and then you correct me if I forget something. So one aspect is, of course, that you and I, we both have we spent some energy into compiling latest releases into the GCDB's Blu-ray release calendar.
Yep.
And sometimes we update it several times a day. Sometimes we update it once or twice a week. And it's definitely not, we are unable to catch all the releases. But of course, if you guys out there send us an email about this and that release, we'll add it. And I think one of the things I like about the release calendar is that it shows that not only is it a nice help to scout for stuff to get, but also it shows really how much stuff gets released, and how great of a time it is to be a fan of these movies.
Definitely,
because so much stuff gets released, and the year is almost over, but it's not really over yet, and there might still be more announcements to come for the Christmas business.
And we do have the previous years on there too. The past couple of years we've been doing this, so we have two other years full of releases that people can go through, and if they're trying to catch up, just scan through those pages, and you'll be able to find tons of stuff.
And it's such a help. The thing that we have to be realistic about is that not everybody is a real
collector,
spends a lot of time on these things, or is a collector. So while this might be a nice thing for us, it's probably a huge help for those who don't have all the knowledge of all the genres. So and that's also the reason why a couple of years ago we started the same thing also for the Spaghetti Western database.
Yeah,
because most folks out there, they're really glad about having one page that they can check and see what's out there.
It's a good resource,
rather than what I do, of course, for these pages is I go to some of the Blu-ray pages that are out there, and I sometimes I scan the Japanese Amazon and the Italian Amazon, and I see what are the to be released ones without a cover picture, and of course that's for the pros like you and I. But for most folks, I think we did a really nice job at
it's
presenting something that's easy to use and gives you an impression of what's coming out.
And like you were saying, we probably don't get every last little title, but I mean, it's like, it gives you a nice like kind of overview of what's out like and stuff. Absolutely. And, you know, where to start. And, you know, there's a lot of good, and all those labels that we have on the site, they're all awesome labels, like Shout Factory and Arrow Video and Severin and Blue Underground. And, you know, all the, you know, Kino Lorber, they're putting out some really awesome titles. They're all different types of genres. And, you know, we love it.
Yeah, so that's one thing. So we want to definitely point to that as a resource, and also for those obviously who know of titles that we haven't put up there. We're always happy about little tips that we get by email or by Twitter message or something. And the second big thing, of course, is that the Grindhouse Cinema Database is just the sum of the people working on it. So we're always happy about reviews. We're always happy about corrections and additions to information, pictures, links, articles, interviews. So if you're out there and you know a lot about these movies, or even if you don't, but you're an enthusiast, get in touch with us. Get to know us. You can hop on board. You know, write an article, write a review, add some information, and if we hit it off, this is not a business, so we're not out there to hire anyone, but
getting paid.
We have a small, but changing, but hopefully growing little decentralized team across the globe of folks who write articles. We have Divi from India. We have Josiah, who's an expert on blaxploitation movies and so forth. So for those out there listening, get in touch if you want to be part of the gang.
It's getting to the point where people are like sending me emails telling me to like fix reviews and stuff. Like, you know, like, oh, you got that word wrong on the page. I'm like, okay, I'll fix it right now for you.
Yeah, I do. I mean, and the great thing is, we use the same software that Wikipedia does, and we do the same software we also use on the Spaghetti Western database. So it's a lot of people can work on that stuff. If you fix just little things, that's fine. If you want to write whole articles, that's fine too. Anything that just improves this as a resource for fans.
Yep, it's that. I think that design, that layout is really cool. Like the wiki layout as opposed to like the blog, because it's more like you're kind of like, it's always like a work in progress type thing, and you're always like, you can always add stuff, and you can always edit stuff and fix it. That's sort of like built into the whole concept of the site, like. But
So what else?
I don't know. Is that all we got? I think we covered pretty much everything.
I think that is plenty for the first episode.
First episode of 42nd Street Podcast, and thanks for being on the show today, Seb. Hopefully you'll be able to come back and we'll be able to, go over some different movies, and we'll have we'll be talking again.
Maybe what are some of the channels that this is going to be on?
It's going to be on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Google. I don't know what else. YouTube. We'll put the YouTube Facebook up, and we'll have to figure all that stuff out. And once you get it online, like they kind of distribute it for you to all the different channels and stuff. So that'll be like,
obviously you can find it on Grindhouse,
and we'll be like we'll retweet this stuff on Twitter and get it out so everybody knows where it's gonna be and everything like that. So
and for those who aren't tired of listening to us already, we have 2 episodes of the Furious Cinema podcast already out there.
Yeah, if they're tired of listening to.
Yeah, I hope not.
Don't get sick of us already.
This was great, and for those out there, thanks for listening, and we'll work on ideas for the next episode. And if you follow us on Twitter and Facebook and so forth, you'll see and hear and read when the next one's out and coming.
I'm already working on getting some more guests on the next show, so it should be pretty fun to like go through and talk about different genres and all the different types of people's favorite movies. So we're looking forward to it. So thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time on 42nd Street Forever. This is Pete Roberts signing off. See you later, Seb.
See you, man.